Caleb had been inside my apartment less than 4 minutes when he asked me for $36,000. He didn't work up to it. He stood between the second-hand couch and the coffee table, still wearing his charcoal work jacket, and said, "Mom could lose the house." Rain shone on his shoulders. He'd parked crooked outside, the nose of his truck taking up half the handicapped space, which was such a Caleb thing to do that I almost smiled. Almost. "How far behind is she?" I asked. "Far enough that we don't have time to pick this apart." "We?" His mouth tightened. 6 months earlier, that same mouth had told me I was never his father. Now he glanced toward the little desk where I kept my retirement paperwork and said, "You have money put away. I know you do. She needs you to save her home, not ours. Not the house where I'd slept beside his mother for 28 years. Not the kitchen where I'd taught him to make pancakes without scorching the butter. Her home." I looked at the rain running down my window and wondered how a man could be removed from a family one word at a time, then summoned back by an emergency. "You don't get to tell me I was never your father," I said, "and then hand me a father's bill." Caleb stared at me. The worst part was that I still wanted to ask whether Marcy had remembered to eat dinner. 6 months earlier, the biggest problem in that house had been a birthday cake leaning to the left. Marcy was turning 60, and she had specifically requested no party. In Marcy language, that meant no rented room, no balloons, and absolutely no people from her bookkeeping office singing to her. It did not mean no dinner. If I had taken her literally and served leftover meatloaf, I would have spent the next week being told she wasn't upset in a tone that could strip paint. So, I ordered salmon from the place she liked, bought green beans I knew she would pretend to appreciate, and attempted a lemon cake. The cake came out of the oven with one side 2 inches higher than the other. Marcy walked in while I was bent over it with a bread knife. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Correcting a structural issue?" "You're cutting the top off. That's one way to correct a structural issue." She set her purse on the counter and leaned over my shoulder. She had changed out of her office clothes before leaving work, but one of her silver earrings was still on. The other side was bare. Marcy could balance 3 company accounts down to the penny and lose an earring between her desk and the parking lot. "You made me a cake," she said. "I'm trying to." "No, this is better. It looks homemade. It looks condemned." She dipped one finger into the icing bowl. I slapped the back of her hand lightly with the knife handle. "That's for later. It's my birthday. That doesn't make you the health department." She tasted the icing anyway, then kissed my cheek with sugar on her lips. Those were the moments that made the rest of our marriage easy to misunderstand. We liked each other. We could make each other laugh before breakfast. We knew how the other took coffee, which side of the bed stayed cooler, and when silence meant peace instead of anger. Marcy could still walk into a room and make me notice she'd arrived. We had also spent years stepping around the same loose floorboards. The house had belonged to her parents. When we married, she asked to keep the deed in her name because it was the one solid thing she'd carried out of her first marriage. I understood. At least, I said I did. I paid half the taxes, replaced the furnace, rebuilt the back steps, and never brought up the deed again. That was my specialty. I could turn not bringing something up into a personality trait. Caleb was already grown by then, though I'd been in his life long before that. I never asked him to call me Dad. Some years he did. Some years he called me Owen, like we were co-workers assigned to the same loading dock. I told myself the word didn't matter. That was another thing I didn't bring up. "Caleb texted," Marcy said, examining my mutilated cake. "They'll be here at 7. "They?" "Lauren's coming." I assumed his wife qualified. You know what I mean. I did. Caleb had a habit of arriving alone when he wanted money or sympathy. If Lauren came, the evening was supposedly social. "Did he say anything about the showroom?" Marcy asked. "No." She gave me a look. "What?" "You talked to him Tuesday." "He talked to me." "Tuesday." I held the phone. And he said the new showroom opportunity was moving fast. Marcy waited. I opened a cabinet and took out the birthday candles. Anything that gets called an opportunity more than twice in 5 minutes is usually an invoice. You haven't even seen the space. I've seen commercial leases. You've seen bus depots. I've seen people sign things they couldn't afford. She turned away to rinse icing from her finger. The movement was small, but I knew her shoulders. I'd learned that particular tightening years ago. It meant I had crossed from practical into condescending without noticing the border. "I'm not saying Caleb can't do it," I said. "No. You're just saying it in your special way where nobody can accuse you of saying it." I rested the candle box on the counter. Marcy, it's my birthday. You can't argue with me. I thought that only applied to stealing icing. It expands as needed. She smiled when she said it, but the loose floorboard was under us now. We both felt it. Caleb's truck came up the driveway at 7:12, headlights washing across the dining room wall. He was always a little late, never enough to apologize with conviction. I heard the driver's door, then his laugh, and something in me relaxed before I could stop it. That was Caleb too. He could make irritation feel petty just by walking in, cheerful. He entered carrying flowers from a grocery store and a narrow white envelope. At 38, he had Marcy's hazel eyes and his biological father's height, though he'd built his style from catalog pictures of men who owned boats. Dark jeans, expensive boots with no dirt on them, watch large enough to monitor air traffic. "Birthday woman," he announced, wrapping Marcy in both arms. She laughed into his shoulder. "You're late. 7 is a concept. 7 is a number. See, this is why I got you a card instead of a calculator." Lauren came in behind him with a bottle of wine. She was wearing navy scrubs under a wool coat and looked exhausted enough to sleep standing up. She worked at a physical therapy clinic and had the steady gaze of someone who spent her days listening to people explain why they hadn't done the exercises. "Happy birthday," she told Marcy, hugging her. Then she handed me the wine and whispered, "I tried to get him here on time. I don't investigate miracles," I said. At dinner, Caleb told us about a client who wanted walnut cabinets but kept showing him photographs of oak. Marcy laughed in all the right places. Lauren ate quietly and rubbed the bridge of her nose. The new showroom didn't come up until I brought out the cake. Marcy clapped when she saw it, which was generous considering the icing had begun sliding downhill. "What happened to it?" Caleb asked. "Your mother wanted an open concept cake." "I love it," Marcy said. "You have to say that," I told her. "I absolutely do not. I put 6 candles on top, 1 for each decade, because 60 candles would have turned the cake into a brush fire." Caleb lit them. We sang badly. Marcy closed her eyes before blowing them out, and I watched her wish longer than usual. Caleb waited until I had served the first slice. "I signed a letter of intent," he said. Lauren's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Marcy looked delighted. "For the new space? It's not final yet. We have 30 days to finish the financing." I set the cake server down. "How much space?" 4,800 square feet, but that includes storage. Your current place is what? 1,800? 21. You're more than doubling. I'm expanding. Those are the same numbers with different confidence. "Owen," Marcy said. "What?" I'm asking. Caleb leaned back in his chair. "The location changes everything. It puts us in front of North County clients. Designers, custom builders, people doing full house renovations instead of replacing one sad kitchen. Your sad kitchen's paid for that watch," Lauren said. Caleb looked at her, surprised. She took a bite of cake. "What?" "They did." Marcy smiled, trying to keep it light. "I think it sounds exciting." "It is," Caleb said. "The foot traffic alone, people don't buy custom cabinets because they wandered past a window," I said. "They do when the window shows them what they didn't know they wanted." It was a good answer. Caleb had always been good at the part of business where a desire entered the room. He could stand in an unfinished kitchen, run a hand along a crooked counter, and make the owner see Christmas dinners in a space that didn't exist yet. He was genuinely talented. That made it harder to know when confidence had slipped into fantasy. "What are they asking per square foot?" I said. He told me. I did the math without meaning to. Rent, insurance, utilities, build-out, another employee at minimum. Then the months before the new location generated enough work to carry itself. Lauren watched me calculate. Caleb watched me too, and I could tell he resented that I knew he was watching. "How much financing do you need?" I asked. 200, all in. Marcy's smile faded a fraction. "How much do you have?" I said. "I've got money in the business. That wasn't my question. 80, once 2 current jobs close. Signed contracts, basically. There's no basically on a signed contract." Caleb put down his fork. "This is why I didn't want to do this tonight." I looked around the table. "Do what?" Marcy wiped icing from the edge of her plate, though there was barely any there. Caleb drew a slow breath. "I'm not asking you for 200. The room went very still. "How much are you asking us for?" I said. He looked at his mother before he looked at me. That was when I understood the conversation had started before dinner. Maybe days before. Maybe weeks. Marcy had not been surprised by the number. She had only been waiting to see how I would react to it. Caleb found a way we could help without touching your pension, she said carefully. My pension, not our savings, not our retirement. The words had begun dividing things before anybody admitted there was a line. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. All right, I said, let's hear it. Caleb reached toward the narrow white envelope he had set beside Marcy's flowers. Until then, I thought we were discussing a showroom. Caleb already believed we were deciding whether I belonged in the family. Inside the envelope was a color photograph of a storefront with tall black windows and a red for lease banner stretched across the brick. Behind it were 3 pages of numbers and a printout from a lender showing what Marcy might qualify to borrow against the house. Nobody touched the cake. I read the first page twice, not because it was complicated, but because I wanted to give my temper time to arrive in a form I could manage. 120,000, I said. That's the maximum, Caleb said. Is it? We may not need all of it. That's usually why people apply for the maximum. Marcy folded her arms. We're only talking. I tapped the lender's printout. This looks like more than talking. It's an estimate, she said. Nothing has been signed. You gave them enough information to run an estimate. My information. The words landed gently. Marcy had always been good at setting down sharp things without making noise. Lauren stared at the table. Caleb reached for the wine bottle and filled his glass, though he had barely touched the first one. I asked Mom if she'd be open to hearing options, he said. That's all? Did you ask if I'd be open to it? I'm asking now. No, you're presenting it on her birthday with a photograph and lender paperwork. It was the only night we were all together. You have my phone number. You don't answer when you know what I'm calling about. I answered Tuesday. You lectured me about leases. I asked how much the lease was. Same thing with you. Lauren pushed her chair back slightly. I should probably head home. Caleb looked at her. Seriously? I worked 10 hours. You knew we were discussing this tonight? That told me Lauren had known too. Not everything, judging by her face, but enough to know the cake was camouflage. You said we were mentioning it, she replied. What's the difference? This. She waved one hand over the table. This is the difference. Marcy reached across and touched Lauren's wrist. You don't have to go. Lauren looked at her, then at me. I really do. She stood, carried her plate to the sink, and rinsed it even though I told her to leave it. That was Lauren's way of escaping without appearing rude. She could disappear from a room one responsible gesture at a time. Caleb followed her into the front hall. I could hear them whispering beside the coat closet. You're making it weird, he said. It was weird when I got here. You were supposed to support me. I told you I support the business. I didn't say I support this. The front door opened. A moment later, Lauren returned alone, kissed Marcy's cheek, and thanked me for dinner. At the threshold, she paused. The cake was good, she said. It was leaning. So is our garage. We still use it. She gave me a tired smile, then left. Caleb came back to the table without his jacket. Apparently, his marriage could wait in the truck until he finished arranging ours. Marcy began collecting plates. Sit down, I told her. I can clear my own table. I know you can. She stacked my plate on top of hers, silverware rattling between them. I don't want this turning into a trial. It's not a trial. You're holding the papers like evidence. I put them down. Caleb took that as permission to begin again. The house has a lot of equity, he said. The payment would be manageable, especially once the second location is operating. I'd cover it from the business. What happens before the second location is operating? I cover it from the first. How much did the first location net last year? He looked toward Marcy. I said, don't look at your mother. It's your business. Things were uneven last year. How uneven? We had a slow third quarter. Net income, Caleb. He pressed his lips together. I knew that expression. I'd first seen it when he was young and had tried to repair a dent in Marcy's car with a toilet plunger. He didn't mind being wrong. He minded being observed while it happened. 52, he said. Before or after your salary? After. Lauren had told me once during a Christmas dinner that Caleb's salary from the business was $90,000. At the time, I'd thought that sounded high for a company with 4 employees. Now I knew it was absurd. So the business clears 52, and you wanted to carry a new loan payment, a larger lease, utilities, build-out costs, and added payroll. The new location creates new revenue, not on the first day. I know how business works. I'm trying to see if you know how this business works. His chair legs scraped the floor. "There it is," he said. "What?" "That tone." "What tone?" "The one where I'm 17 and you're explaining why my plan is stupid." I leaned back. "I didn't call your plan stupid. You never have to. You just ask questions until everybody else feels stupid." Marcy set the plates down so hard a fork bounced onto the table. "He has a point," she said. I looked at her. She picked up the fork and kept her eyes on it. "Sometimes you decide something's a bad idea before anyone finishes speaking. I read the proposal. You read 3 pages. That's all he brought." Caleb laughed once without humor. "I could bring you 50 pages. You'd find page 51. If page 51 is where you explain how you repay the money, yes, I said I'd make the payments. From $52,000 in net income. Last year's income. The only year we have in front of us." Marcy pulled out her chair and sat again. "What if I'm comfortable with the risk?" I turned to her. "Are you? It's my house." There it was, not shouted, not even spoken angrily, just a fact, which made it worse. I looked around the dining room. I had stripped the wallpaper in that room during our second summer together. Marcy and I had argued for 3 weeks over paint colors and ended up choosing the first one she'd suggested. The ceiling fixture had come from an estate sale, and I'd rewired it at the kitchen table while Caleb held a flashlight and complained that his arm hurt. I knew exactly which parts of that house belonged to me. None of them could be recorded at the courthouse. "Yes," I said. "It is." Marcy's face changed. "That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You're allowed to mean it. Owen, don't do this." "Do what? Turn one sentence into some grand statement about our marriage. I'm asking whether you intend to borrow $120,000 against the house. I'm asking you to discuss it without shutting Caleb down. I am discussing it. No, you're interrogating him." Caleb leaned forward. "Mom believes in me." I looked at him. "This isn't about belief. It always is with you. No, sometimes it's about math. You think because you fixed buses for 35 years, you understand every business. I understand debt. You understand being afraid of debt. That fear kept food on this table during 2 layoffs. And here we go. The list." "What list?" "The list of everything Owen did for everybody." "I didn't make a list. You don't have to. You carry it around in your face." I felt something in me go still. Caleb saw it. For half a second he looked sorry. Then pride moved faster. "I'm trying to build something," he said. "Something bigger than a safe little job and a pension. You've never respected that. I spent 6 weekends helping you build the first showroom. I paid you back. You bought the materials. That isn't the same thing. So now I owe you labor? I didn't say you owe me anything. You just did." I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the lender's printout. "Caleb, I am not putting your mother's house behind an expansion your current business can't support. You're not putting anything behind it. It isn't your house." Marcy said his name quietly. He kept going. "You act like you get veto power over every decision because you've been around a long time. I'm Marcy's husband. This is between me and my mother. She's my wife. And you always do that. You insert yourself and make everything about what you've sacrificed. I helped raise you. The second I said it, I knew I'd handed him the knife." His eyes hardened. "You were never my father," he said. "You were just the man Mom married." The refrigerator hummed behind me. Outside, a car went by with its stereo loud enough to make the dining room window tremble. Then it was gone, and the house settled around us. I looked at Caleb and saw, all at once, every version of him I had known. The furious young man who had called me from a broken-down car at 2 a.m. The nervous groom whose tie I had straightened in a church bathroom. The grown man sitting across from me now, daring me to admit that none of it had meant what I thought. "Is that what you believe?" I asked. His anger flickered. "I'm saying you don't get to decide this. That wasn't my question." He looked away. I turned to Marcy. She had both hands pressed flat on the table. Her wedding ring caught the light from the old fixture. "Is that what you believe?" I asked her. "No." The answer came quickly, but not strongly enough. "Then say what you do believe." "Owen, he's upset. So am I. Nothing good is going to come from forcing this right now. I'm not forcing anything. I'm asking my wife whether I'm family." Her mouth opened, then closed. Caleb shifted in his chair. "Don't put her in the middle. She was in the middle before you brought the envelope." Marcy stood. "Stop." Neither of us spoke. She looked at me with tears gathering in her eyes, which made me angry in a way Caleb's words had not. Marcy's tears could turn her into the injured person in a room before anybody examined who had been cut. "I love you," she said, "but I will not choose between my husband and my son." I waited for the rest. There wasn't any. Caleb shoved his chair back and grabbed the envelope. The photograph slipped out and landed face down under the table. "I shouldn't have come," he said. "No," I told him. "You should have. I needed to hear it." He looked at me then, really looked, but whatever he saw made him reach for his jacket instead of an apology. Marcy followed him to the door. She touched his arm and whispered something I couldn't hear. He hugged her. Then he left without saying goodbye to me. I stayed at the table until his truck backed out. The photograph was still on the floor. I picked it up, slid it into the envelope, and placed the envelope beside Marcy's flowers. Then I cleared the dishes. Marcy came into the kitchen while I was scraping cake into a container. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know. You're punishing me with silence. I'm trying not to say something I can't take back." That didn't stop Caleb. "No." She leaned against the refrigerator. He didn't mean it. He knew the sentence. "What does that mean?" "It means people don't say something that precise by accident." He felt cornered, so he explained where I stand. "You corner people, Owen. You get calm, and everybody else gets louder, and then you act like being the calm one makes you right." I put the lid on the cake container. "That's fair," I said. The agreement unsettled her more than an argument would have. "I'm not saying he was right. You didn't say he was wrong. I told you I don't believe that. You told me you won't choose. I shouldn't have to." "No, you shouldn't." I ran water into the sink. Marcy watched me wash the plates, dry them, and return them to the cabinet. She kept waiting for the familiar version of me to appear, the man who would finish a task, breathe out, and decide peace was worth swallowing, whatever remained. When the kitchen was clean, I went upstairs and took a blanket from the hall closet. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Sleeping in the spare room? Over one terrible dinner?" No, that was all I could give her. I lay awake on the narrow bed, listening to Marcy cross the hall twice. Both times she stopped outside the door. Both times she walked away. Before sunrise, I packed clothes into an old canvas duffel. I included my shaving kit, medication, 2 books, and the brown sweater Marcy hated. I left the blue one she liked, folded in the drawer. She appeared in the bedroom doorway wearing her robe. "Where are you going?" "I don't know yet." Her face went pale. "You're leaving me?" "I'm leaving the house." "For how long?" "I don't know that either." She folded her arms tightly over herself. "This is cruel. I'm not trying to be cruel. You're walking out the morning after my birthday. I stayed last night because it was your birthday." She stared at me as if I had become a stranger while she slept. Then she said the thing that proved she still didn't understand why I was leaving. "Caleb will apologize." I picked up the duffel. This isn't only about Caleb. I passed her in the doorway. She didn't try to stop me again. On the kitchen counter, the crooked cake sat beside the flowers, and the white envelope was gone. I stood there longer than I should have, looking at the bare spot beside the flowers. Then I carried my duffel to the car. The morning was cold enough to frost the windshield. I started the engine and waited for the glass to clear, though I could have scraped it in 30 seconds. Through the dining room window, I saw Marcy move past the curtains. She didn't look out. I had nowhere to go, which felt embarrassing at my age. A man in his 60s ought to be able to leave his own life with a better itinerary. I drove to a diner near the old transit yard and ordered coffee. The waitress asked if I wanted breakfast. I said no. She looked at the duffel in the back seat, looked at my wedding ring, and brought me toast anyway. My phone began vibrating before the coffee cooled. Marcy called twice. The third time, she left a message. "I don't know what you expect me to do, Owen. Call me when you're ready to talk instead of making a statement." 5 minutes later, Caleb texted, "Mom's devastated. You've made your point." I read the message until the words stopped looking like language. There are people who can receive an insult, identify it as somebody else's failure, and go on with their day. I have always admired those people. I am not one of them. I typed 3 different replies to Caleb. The first was angry. The second was so calm it sounded cruel. The third said, "I didn't know your mother's devastation was my responsibility after mine became inconvenient." I erased all 3. The waitress topped off my coffee. "You waiting on somebody?" she asked. Apparently not. She nodded like that answer covered several possibilities. I stayed until the breakfast crowd arrived, then checked into a motor lodge beside the interstate. The room had a floral bedspread, a humming heater, and a framed photograph of a lighthouse located nowhere near our state. I set my duffel on the luggage rack and immediately took it off because one of the straps looked loose. Retirement had been 8 months of mornings with Marcy. We drank coffee at the kitchen table, argued over the weather forecast, and divided the day without admitting we were doing it. I had expected to miss the house if I ever left it. I had not expected to miss being told we were low on dish soap. At 11, I called her. She answered before the first ring finished. "Where are you?" "I'm safe." That wasn't the question. "I'm at a motel. A motel. It has towels and electricity. You're being funny now?" "I'm trying." She breathed into the phone. I could picture her standing at the kitchen counter, one ankle crossed behind the other. "Come home," she said. "I can't yet." "You can. You're choosing not to." "That's true." The honesty silenced her. "What is this supposed to accomplish?" she asked. "I don't know. That's not good enough. I spent 28 years pretending I knew how to fix everything. I'm trying not to lie now. So, this is about you finding yourself? No. I'm right here. Owen," I rubbed my forehead. "I need to know you understand what happened last night. My son lost his temper, and your husband asked if he was family. I said I love you. You said you wouldn't choose, because I won't. I didn't ask you to stop loving Caleb. I asked you to tell him he was wrong. He was wrong. You waited until he left. I was trying to keep the situation from getting worse. For who?" She went quiet. That question was unfair in one way. Marcy had spent most of her life preventing explosions before they reached Caleb. She could turn bad news into a temporary setback and an insult into stress talking. It was one of the ways she loved him. It was also how he had reached 38 believing consequences were events that happened to other people. "I'm not discussing this over the phone," she said. "All right, are you coming back today?" "No. Tomorrow?" "I don't know." Her voice dropped. "People do this, Owen. They leave to prove a point and then they're gone. I'm not trying to prove anything." "You packed a bag." "Because staying would have meant pretending we were all right. We could have talked. We are talking." "No, you're answering questions like, 'I'm a claims adjuster.' That sounded enough like me that I laughed once." Marcy didn't. "I'll call tonight," I said. "Don't bother unless you have something to say." She ended the call. Caleb called 20 minutes later. I almost let it go to voicemail, then answered because refusing would have been too easy to misrepresent. "What?" I said. "That's friendly. You called me." He exhaled hard. Traffic moved around him. "Look, last night got out of hand." "Yes." I shouldn't have said what I said. "Which part?" "You know which part." "I want to hear you say it. That's exactly what I'm talking about." "What are you talking about?" "Everything has to happen your way, even an apology. An apology generally includes the thing you're apologizing for." I said I was sorry. "No, you said you shouldn't have said it. Those aren't the same." He muttered something away from the phone. "What was that?" I said, "This is impossible." Then hang up. For several seconds, neither of us did. Finally, he said, "I don't think you're nobody to me." The sentence hurt more than I expected, maybe because he offered it as generosity. "What am I then?" "You're Owen. I know my name." "You were there?" "You did a lot." "I appreciate it. A lot." "See, nothing is enough. I'm trying to understand." "No, you're making me grade your performance." I sat on the edge of the motel bed. The mattress sagged beneath me. Caleb continued, his voice gaining speed now that he had found ground he trusted. "You always bring up raising me when I make a decision you don't like. You say you never wanted credit, but the credit is always there, under everything." I thought of the weekends at his first showroom. I had kept track of every hour because that was how I approached a job, then told him he didn't owe me anything. Had I mentioned those hours later? Probably. Had I used them as a weapon? Not deliberately. That was the trouble with weapons. They did not become harmless because a man called them tools. "You may be right about some of that," I said. Caleb went silent. He had prepared for resistance. Agreement left him with nowhere to push. "But you still said it," I continued. "You knew what it would do. I was angry. You're almost 40. Anger isn't weather anymore." "Oh, come on, no." "If you want to tell me I've made you feel judged, tell me. If you want to say I'm not your father, then live with what that changes." "What does that mean?" "I don't know yet. You're punishing Mom because you're mad at me. I'm not discussing my marriage with you. You already dragged her into it. Your loan proposal used her house. It's not a loan proposal anymore. I sat straighter. What does that mean? It means, forget it. I'll find another way. Good. You sound happy. I'm relieved. You always wanted me to fail. The accusation was so wrong that it nearly pulled me into shouting. Instead, I looked at the motel's fake lighthouse and counted to 3. I wanted you to build something that didn't collapse on the people standing beside it. He ended the call. That afternoon, I found a furnished apartment at Juniper Court, a low brown building behind a pharmacy. The manager was a woman named Denise who wore bright orange glasses and asked no questions about the duffel. 6-month lease costs less than monthly, she said. I may not need 6 months. Everybody says that. She showed me a 1-bedroom on the 2nd floor. The couch was tan, the carpet was beige, and the curtains were a shade best described as waiting room. The kitchen had 2 drawers, one of which was already occupied by a collection of takeout menus. I'll take it, I said. Denise handed me the application. You haven't seen the laundry room. I'm willing to be surprised. I moved in 3 days later. Marcy came on the 4th evening carrying 2 grocery bags, my blue sweater, and a ceramic coffee mug that said, "World's Most Adequate Husband." Caleb had given it to me years ago as a joke. I thought you'd need things, she said. I looked inside the bags, coffee, soup, bread, peanut butter, laundry detergent, and the oatmeal I liked. I know how stores work. I know you do. She walked past me before I could decide whether to invite her in. Her gaze traveled around the apartment. It's very brown. Denise believes color leads to trouble. Who's Denise? The manager. Marcy looked toward the bedroom. She's 70 if she's a day, I said. I didn't ask. You asked with your neck. That almost made her smile. She placed the blue sweater over the back of the couch. I made coffee. We sat across from each other at the little table, knees nearly touching because the apartment had been designed for people without legs. For a few minutes, we discussed ordinary things. A loose gutter at the house, a retirement notice from one of my old coworkers, whether the oatmeal she bought was the right kind. Then I asked, what happened to the envelope? Her fingers tightened around the mug. I put it away. Why? Because it didn't need to sit beside my birthday flowers like a threat. That's fair. She looked relieved too soon. Are you still considering it? I asked. I'm considering helping my son. That isn't an answer. He says he can make it work. He says a lot of things. He's not stupid. I never said he was. You make him feel like he is. Then he should bring me the business records and prove me wrong. There. Prove you wrong. That's what everything becomes. No, Marcy. If he wants to risk his own money, he doesn't owe me an explanation. If he wants to put your house behind it, he owes you one. It's my decision. Yes. She stared into her coffee. I waited for her to say she had rejected the loan. Instead, she asked, if I don't do it, will you come home? No. Her head lifted. I won't let the house become the price of my return, I said. And I won't let Caleb become the only reason we're broken. Then what do you want from me? I want you to stop asking what action gets me back and ask why I could leave. Tears filled her eyes. This time she wiped them away before they fell. You talk like you've been miserable for 28 years. I haven't. That almost makes this worse. She stood and carried her mug to the sink. At the door, she touched my cheek. I closed my eyes for half a second and leaned into her palm before I could stop myself. I love you, she said. I love you too. Then trust me. I opened my eyes, with the loan, with my own life. I wanted to tell her trust did not mean closing my eyes while she stepped toward a ledge. Instead, I kissed her forehead and let her leave. Marcy signed the home equity loan 3 days later. I would not learn that for months. The blue sweater stayed on the back of the couch for a week before I put it in the closet. Marcy and I spoke every evening. Some calls lasted 4 minutes. Others lasted an hour and ended with both of us saying goodnight in voices that made the words sound temporary. We discussed groceries, weather, and people from my old job. We did not discuss Caleb unless one of us slipped. I learned how quickly a man can build a routine around avoiding his own thoughts. Coffee at 6, walk at 7. Breakfast at the diner twice a week. Laundry on Wednesday mornings when the machines downstairs were less likely to contain somebody else's forgotten underwear. On Thursdays, I met Curtis Bell at a pancake place off Route 9. Curtis had retired from the transit department 2 years before me. He had been married 3 times and considered this evidence of expertise. You're doing separation wrong, he told me. How many successful separations have you had? 3? Those were divorces. Every divorce starts as a very successful separation. He poured syrup over his pancakes until they disappeared. Curtis and I had planned a 6-week driving trip for the coming spring. He wanted to follow old highways through New Mexico and Arizona. I wanted to see whether he could survive 6 weeks without complaining about hotel pillows. We had been setting money aside for almost 2 years. "You still going?" he asked. "That's the plan." "Marcy, she never wanted to spend 6 weeks in a car with you." "Smart woman. She might fly out for part of it. Does she know that?" "No? Then she might not." Curtis ate a piece of pancake and studied me. "You want advice?" "Not particularly." "Good. People only take advice when it confirms what they already decided. That's almost insightful. I heard it from my second wife. He didn't push. That was why I kept meeting him. Marcy surprised me by hiring someone to fix the loose gutter. She mentioned it during a phone call as casually as possible. "A contractor came this morning," she said. "He took care of the back corner. Good. He said the fascia was soft. I wondered about that." "You wondered?" "I noticed some discoloration before I left." "And you didn't say anything?" "I wasn't sure. You're always sure. Apparently not." She waited for me to criticize the contractor's work, price, or choice of fasteners. I asked whether he had cleaned up after himself. "Yes." "Then you found a good one." Her tone sharpened. "I'm capable of maintaining a house. I know." "Do you?" There it was again. A door disguised as a question. "I think I liked being needed," I said. She went quiet. I continued before I could improve the sentence into dishonesty. "I may have liked it too much." "Well," she said, "I didn't always like needing you. I can understand that." "No, you can't. You enjoy being the one who knows where the shutoff valve is. It's under the basement stairs." "That was not a question, Owen." I smiled despite myself. She did too. I could hear it. Those little moments kept hope alive, while preventing either of us from deciding what hope required. Caleb sent me an invitation to his grand opening in a group text. The message included a digital card with gold lettering and a photograph of the new showroom. He had named the place North County Design House, dropping his own surname from the business because, according to the promotional copy, the company was now bigger than one man. Beneath the invitation, Marcy replied with 3 champagne glass symbols. Lauren wrote, "Looks beautiful." I wrote nothing. 2 days later, Lauren called me during lunch. "Are you coming Saturday?" she asked. "I haven't decided." "That means no." "It means I haven't decided. You taught Caleb that sentence. I taught him how to change a tire. The rest he developed independently." She laughed, but it faded quickly. "I think Marcy needs you there," she said. "Did she ask you to call?" "No. Did Caleb?" "Caleb would rather set the building on fire than ask you to come." "That seems excessive after paying for the build-out." Lauren went quiet. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." Lauren. "I'm tired, Owen." "You've been tired since Marcy's birthday." "I've been tired since I married a man who considers sleep a personal weakness." There was affection in the sentence, but not enough to cover the resentment. "How is he?" I asked, opening a showroom. "That isn't what I asked." "He's convinced this fixes everything." "Does it?" "Come Saturday." She ended the call before I could ask what she meant. I wore the blue sweater. The showroom occupied the end unit of a renovated brick building, between a lighting store and a shop that sold bathroom fixtures expensive enough to deserve their own security. Through the tall black windows, I could see pendant lights, marble counters, and more people than Caleb's first location attracted in a month. He had done an impressive job. That was my first thought, and I resented myself for sounding surprised. The main display kitchen used dark walnut cabinets with thin brass pulls. A stone island ran through the center of the room, covered with wine glasses and trays of food. Caleb had built a smaller demonstration wall near the back where customers could open drawers, compare finishes, and examine the joinery. I checked a drawer out of habit. "Soft close," a voice behind me said, "for people who have never learned to control their emotions." I turned. Lauren wore a black dress and the same tired expression she'd had at Marcy's dinner. She kissed my cheek. "You came. You made it sound like attendance was medically necessary." "For some people, it might be." She looked across the room. Caleb stood with a group of designers near the front windows, laughing with his hand on one man's shoulder. He moved through the space like he had been born owning it. No trace of the anger from Marcy's birthday showed on his face. Marcy appeared beside me in a green blouse I had always liked. For a moment, neither of us spoke. You wore the sweater, she said. It was clean. That's practically a love letter from you. She hugged me. I held her longer than I intended. Her hair smelled like the lavender shampoo she bought by the case. When we separated, she wiped beneath one eye. Allergies, she said. In November, very aggressive pollen. I didn't challenge her. She took my arm and showed me around as though the showroom belonged partly to her. She knew where the samples were stored, which designer Caleb hoped to hire, and how many guests had confirmed. I assumed Caleb had involved her to make up for our argument. I did not yet understand that she was touring me through the physical shape of her loan. The walnut was a smart choice, I said. I told him you'd like it. He could have used cheaper hinges in the sample wall. He said, clients notice. He said that? Yes. I nodded, more pleased than I wanted Marcy to see. I had taught him that details mattered most where people put their hands. Caleb noticed me after several minutes. He excused himself from the designers and crossed the room. His smile stayed in place until he reached us. You came, he said. That seems to be surprising everyone. I didn't know if this sort of thing met your standards. Marcy touched his arm. Not tonight? He looked at her hand and softened. Right, he said. Not tonight. I offered mine. Congratulations. He stared at it before shaking. Thanks. The layout works, better than it looked in the photograph. You mean the one from the envelope? Yes. So you kept it. Your mother did. His eyes moved toward Marcy. Something passed between them too quickly for me to identify. A woman in a red jacket called Caleb's name. He excused himself, but before he left, he said, We're doing a toast at 8. I'll be here. Marcy squeezed my forearm. For the next hour, I watched Caleb sell a future to people. He was excellent at it. He remembered names, introduced strangers who might benefit each other, and made every customer feel as if their kitchen were not construction but autobiography. Lauren moved through the crowd collecting abandoned glasses. Twice Caleb took them from her and told her staff could handle it. Twice she picked up more. At 8, he tapped a spoon against a champagne flute. First, thank you for coming, he began. A business is supposed to be about numbers, but anybody who's built one knows it's really about the people willing to believe before the numbers arrive. A few people laughed. He thanked his employees, Lauren, the designers, and the contractor who had finished the tile with 12 hours to spare. Then he turned toward Marcy. And my mother, he said. The person who believed in me when belief wasn't the safe choice. Everyone applauded. Marcy covered her mouth. Caleb hugged her, and for a few seconds the whole room saw exactly the story they wanted to see. A devoted son honoring the mother who had backed his dream. I applauded too. Caleb looked over her shoulder at me. There was triumph in his expression, but also a question. He wanted to know whether I understood that the speech had been aimed at me. I lifted my glass. His face changed. Victory is difficult to enjoy when the other man refuses to compete. Later, I found him alone in the stockroom, opening a box of brochures. You don't have to inspect the back, he said. The public part is out front. I was looking for the restroom, other hallway. I started to leave. The walnut really works? He asked. I turned back. Yes. No criticism? Would you like some? No. Then yes. It works. He tore tape from the box. I shouldn't have said what I said at Mom's, he muttered. I waited. I'm not doing the apology test again, he said. I didn't ask you to. You're standing there. I was looking for a restroom. That pulled a reluctant laugh from him. Then his face tightened again. She's been miserable. So have I. You're the one who left. Leaving can hurt the person doing it. You could go home tonight. I could, but you won't. No. He shook his head. Then don't act like this is something happening to you. I stepped farther into the stockroom and lowered my voice. I didn't leave because of one sentence, Caleb. I left because of 2. Yours and your mother's. She refused to choose between us. That's reasonable. She refused to stand beside me when you decided I wasn't family. Maybe she was tired of you making everything a loyalty test. The words sounded borrowed. Did she say that? He looked away. Before I could ask again, Marcy appeared in the doorway. There you are, she said brightly. People are leaving. Caleb picked up the brochures. Congratulations, I told him once more. This time, he nodded without sarcasm. Marcy walked me to my car. She slipped her arm through mine against the cold. You could come home for coffee, she said. I have coffee. You have beige coffee. That's the furniture. You know what I mean? I did. At my car, she kissed me. It was not a polite kiss or a confused one. For several seconds, I forgot the showroom, the house, and the loan application I believed had been abandoned. Then she stepped back. You still love me, she whispered. That was never the question. Behind her, Caleb's name glowed in white letters across the showroom windows. The building looked solid from the parking lot. Most expensive mistakes do, Marcy called before I reached Juniper Court. You left without answering me. I kissed you. That wasn't the question. What was the question? Coffee. I didn't hear a question. You heard it. The highway lights passed across my windshield in steady intervals. If I'd come in, coffee wouldn't have been coffee. Would that have been terrible? No. Then why didn't you? Because I still wanted her. Because wanting her made it easy to pretend that nothing else required an answer. I don't know how to be in that house right now, I said. It hasn't changed. Yes, it has, she breathed out. You mean Caleb. I mean us. Owen, every road with you leads back to the same conversation. Then maybe we haven't finished it. She ended the call without saying goodnight. A week later, she invited me to dinner. I arrived at 6 carrying wine and the cake container she had packed for me after her birthday. The container was clean. Returning it felt absurdly formal, like handing over evidence after an investigation. My key still worked. I opened the front door and called her name. In the kitchen, the house smelled like pot roast and rosemary. My slippers were still beside the stairs. A jacket I hadn't taken hung on the hall hook. Marcy had not erased me. She had preserved me, which was somehow harder to see. She wore jeans and a cream-colored sweater, and she had put on both silver earrings. You used your key, she said. You haven't changed the lock. Why would I? I held up the cake container. Brought your property back. That was a gift. It took up a third of my cabinet. So you're saying you need larger accommodations. I'm saying whoever designed that apartment kitchen was angry. She smiled and took the container. Dinner was easy at first. We discussed Curtis's travel plans, Denise's orange glasses, and the contractor who had repaired the gutter. Marcy admitted she had watched him work from the dining room because she didn't trust his ladder angle. So you do need me, I said. I need someone to complain to. That's different. The pot roast was too salty. I ate 2 servings. Afterward, she poured wine and put on a record we had bought during a weekend in Nashville years ago. The turntable sat in the living room beneath a row of photographs. Caleb's wedding picture, Marcy and me at the coast. The 3 of us in front of his first showroom, all wearing dust-covered clothes and tired smiles. She stood near the couch, holding out her hand. I'm not dancing to this, I said. You danced to it in Nashville. I was in another time zone. We didn't change time zones. I had hotel confusion. She pulled me up. We moved slowly between the coffee table and the fireplace. Marcy rested her cheek against my chest. I knew every small weight of her, the pressure of her hand on my shoulder, the way her right knee bent slightly before she turned. I miss you, she said. I miss you too. Then come home. I closed my eyes. She felt me hesitate and stepped back. You can't keep saying you love me while acting like living with me is dangerous. It isn't dangerous. Then what is it? I don't trust what happens the next time Caleb needs something. Her hand dropped from mine. He found financing somewhere else. What kind? Business financing. That's expensive. He believes the showroom will cover it. Did you sign anything? She walked to the turntable and lifted the needle before the song ended. I invited you here because I wanted one evening with my husband. I'm trying to be your husband. No, you're trying to audit me. I asked a question, and if I don't answer it exactly right, you leave again. I already left. The words came out colder than I intended. Marcy turned. Yes, you did. For a moment I thought dinner was over. Then she crossed the room, took my face in both hands, and kissed me. There was anger in it, grief too. I kissed her back because restraint is easier to admire in theory. We made it halfway up the stairs before she laughed against my mouth. What? I asked. You still have your shoes on. I'm separated, not feral. That broke the tension just enough for us to become ourselves again. Later, I lay on my side of our bed while Marcy slept with one hand resting against my back. The room was unchanged. My book still lay on the nightstand with a receipt marking the page. A glass of water stood where she had always put one for me. I should have felt home. Instead, I felt like a guest being shown how perfectly my absence had been kept. At 3 in the morning, I got up for water. In the kitchen, the green light on the stove clock filled the room. I could hear the furnace I had installed start beneath the floor. My car keys sat on the counter beside Marcy's purse. I stayed. That mattered to me, even if I knew it would not matter enough to her. In the morning, she made eggs. We did not discuss the night before. She hummed while she cooked, and for half an hour I let myself believe I could carry my duffel upstairs and end the whole separation by refusing to think. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Caleb. "Need your help at the showroom. Back display door is sagging. Tried everything." I showed Marcy. Her smile was cautious. "He asked you? He appears to have exhausted every other possibility. Will you go?" "Yes." She handed me a plate. After breakfast. Caleb had already removed the door when I arrived. It lay across 2 padded sawhorses in the showroom's back hall, surrounded by 3 screwdrivers, a drill, and language he claimed he had not used. "You plan to rehang it or hold a funeral?" I asked. He straightened. "The top keeps rubbing. You used the wrong screws. They came with the hinge. So do assembly instructions. You ignored those too. I knew asking you was a mistake. Then I'll leave." Wait. It was the first time I had heard him say that word without making it sound like an order. He handed me the drill. I examined the frame. The hinge side jamb had shifted because the original fasteners barely reached the framing. It was not a major repair, but it required longer screws and a small adjustment at the top hinge. Caleb watched me work. "I did use longer ones," he said. "Where?" He pointed to 2 holes near the center hinge. "Those are drywall screws. They're screws. A goldfish and a shark are both fish. Put one in the other's job and see what happens." He laughed before catching himself. We rehung the door together. When it swung cleanly, Caleb opened and closed it 4 times. "You can stop," I said. "It's convinced." He looked over the top edge. "How did you know the jamb moved? The gap was wider at the bottom." I looked at the gap. "You looked at it while angry." He set the drill down. "You think anger makes me stupid? I think anger makes everybody stupid." "Including you?" "I left my house with one sweater I hate." His mouth twitched. For a few minutes, we stood in the demonstration kitchen while the showroom remained closed. Without customers, the place felt larger and less convincing. A stack of unopened sample boxes crowded one wall. The brass pendant lights were on, though daylight filled the windows. "You stayed at Mom's last night," he said. I looked at him. She texted Lauren. "That's none of your business." "She's happy." "That's still none of your business." "Are you going home?" "No." His expression hardened. "Why not?" "Because sleeping with your mother didn't resolve our marriage." He flinched. I didn't need that wording. "You asked a personal question. I asked if you were going home." "No." He walked to the island and aligned a stack of catalogs that did not need aligning. "You know she gave up the loan," he said. The sentence was carefully shaped. "What loan?" "The one from the papers. She said you found business financing." "I did." "From where?" He looked toward the front windows. "Why do you care? You already said it wasn't your problem. I never said you weren't my problem. You don't get to have it both ways. Neither do you." The old fight waited between us. I could see him deciding whether to pick it up. Instead, he said, "Thanks for the door. You're welcome." As I collected my tools, the front entrance opened. Lauren walked in carrying a cardboard box filled with coffee pods, printer paper, and a framed photograph from Caleb's office. Caleb's face changed. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Taking my things? Right now? I told you last night. You told me you needed space. That's what this is." She saw me and stopped. "Oh," she said. "I didn't know you'd be here." I fixed the door. "Of course you did." Caleb moved between us. "Can we not make this a family event?" Lauren stared at him. "Your entire life is a family event when you need something." The words were close enough to my own wound that I looked away. "I'll go," I said. "Owen," Caleb began. But Lauren was already carrying the box toward the entrance, and he followed her. I left through the rear door. Marcy called that evening. She did not ask about the repair. "Lauren moved out," she said. "I know. You know, I was there." There was a long pause. "Caleb came here," she said. "He's staying in the spare room, the room where I had slept after her birthday." I looked around my brown apartment at the blue sweater folded over the arm of the couch. "How long?" I asked. He doesn't know. Neither had I. Some answers sounded different depending on which man gave them. Caleb stayed at the house long enough for his shampoo to appear in the upstairs shower and his work boots to claim the mat by the back door. Marcy told me this in pieces. He had brought one suitcase, then another, then his espresso machine, which was apparently essential equipment for a man sleeping in his mother's spare room. He's going through a difficult time, she said. So is Lauren. She chose to leave. So did I. That's different. How? You're my husband. I was hoping that mattered. We were sitting in a small Italian restaurant halfway between the house and Juniper Court. Choosing neutral territory had started as a way to avoid pressure. It had become another routine. Marcy twirled pasta around her fork, then let it unwind. Are you enjoying this? She asked. What? Watching Caleb's life fall apart after you warned him. I set down my glass. No. You've barely asked how he is. When I ask, you defend him. When I don't, you accuse me of enjoying it. You could call him. He could call me. You're supposed to be the mature one. I'm 64. He's 38. At some point, maturity stops being assigned by seating order. A man at the next table glanced over. I lowered my voice. Marcy's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears away. He's hurting, she said. I know. He thinks Lauren's leaving because the business has been demanding. Is that what Lauren thinks? She won't return my calls. Maybe because you're calling on his behalf. I care about both of them. Then call her to ask how she is. Marcy looked down at her plate. That was the first time I saw her consider that helping Caleb and protecting him might not always be the same act. She changed the subject. Are you still taking that trip with Curtis? In the spring. For 6 weeks? That's the plan. You used to hate being away from home for 6 days. I'm trying new things, like beige furniture. Denise says brown promotes emotional stability. Who is Denise again? Still 70. This time Marcy laughed. The couple beside us looked relieved. We walked to her car after dinner. She kissed my cheek, then climbed behind the wheel without asking me home. Her restraint felt like progress until I realized it might have been exhaustion. Lauren called me the next afternoon. I want my mixer, she said. Hello to you too. Sorry? Hello? I want my mixer. From the house? From the showroom. Caleb took it for the opening. Why are you calling me? Because if I call him, we'll discuss our marriage for 45 minutes, and I'll still have no mixer. I'm not breaking into his business. You have a key. How do you know? Everybody knows you have keys to everything. I did have a key. Caleb had given it to me the morning I fixed the display door because he had to leave before I finished. Neither of us had mentioned that I still possessed it. I'll tell him to bring it to you. He won't. You married him. I'm trying to correct that. She said it flatly, without anger. I leaned against my kitchen counter. Are you sure? I've been sure for 6 months. I've only been honest for 2 weeks. Does he know? He thinks this is a rough patch. Is it? No. It's a road ending. I had no useful response. Lauren continued, quieter. I love him. That's the inconvenient part. But there's always one more thing that will fix everything. One contract, one showroom, one good month. He spends tomorrow before it arrives, and then he gets angry at today for being late. Did he lie to you about the financing? She paused. What did he tell you? She asked. That he found business financing. He told me it was handled. That isn't the same thing. Nothing Caleb says is the same thing once you look at it twice. Before I could ask more, she returned to the mixer. I promised to contact him, Caleb answered on the 4th ring. Lauren called you? She wants her mixer. She has my dining table. She isn't making bread on your dining table. It's not about the mixer. It is to me. He cursed under his breath. I'll take it, he said. Good. I waited. He did too. How's business? I asked. Busy. That can be good or bad. It's good. All right. You don't believe me. I said all right. You said it like a doctor who found something. Caleb, I called about a mixer. He hung up. 3 days later, Marcy canceled our dinner because Caleb needed help at the showroom. One of his installers had quit in the middle of a large job, and Caleb planned to finish it himself overnight. What help can you give him? I asked. Bring food, answer phones, whatever he needs. He has employees. He has fewer than he did. I looked at the grocery bag I had packed for the dinner I was supposed to cook at her house. Are we rescheduling? I asked. Of course. When? Why are you doing this? Doing what? Making me choose again. I closed my eyes. You called to cancel our dinner so you could help Caleb. He's in trouble. He's always in trouble when we get close to discussing us. That's not his fault. No, it's ours. I don't have time for this." The call ended. I carried the groceries downstairs and gave them to Denise. She looked inside the bag. Steak? 2. Divorce? Not yet. I'll freeze one. That was the closest Denise came to optimism. The showroom remained open through the holidays, but its shine began to dull. The front displays still looked expensive. The back changed, sample boxes piled up. One pendant light went dark and stayed dark. Caleb began doing installations himself because, according to Marcy, he couldn't find people who cared about quality. People often develop quality concerns when they can no longer make payroll. I didn't say that to her. Curtis and I met at the travel agency to pay deposits on the spring trip. He watched me sign the credit card slip. "You look like you're buying a kidney," he said. "It's a lot of money. You've saved it." "I know." "Then stop acting like you stole it." We had booked small hotels, rental cabins, and a guided trip through a canyon Curtis insisted he had wanted to see since he was 30. "You can still back out," he said. "I'm not backing out. Marcy might want you home." "Marcy knows where I live." Curtis folded his receipt and slipped it into his wallet. "That sounds wise," he said. "Wise is usually miserable." I kept the trip. A week later, I drove past North County Design House at noon and saw the lights off. I told myself Caleb might be meeting a client elsewhere. The next day, the lights were off again. On the 3rd, brown paper covered the inside of the black windows. Marcy called that evening. "He's consolidating," she said. "Back to the original showroom?" "Yes." "Is the lease ending?" "He's negotiating." "With the landlord?" "Owen." "That's not an accusation. It sounds like one. How much did he lose?" "He didn't lose. It didn't work out." "How much did not working out cost?" "I don't know. I believed her then. That was my mistake." Marcy had always been poor at lying directly. She became very good at arranging sentences around whatever she could not admit. "Does he need help closing the space?" I asked. "I thought you weren't rescuing him." "Helping him carry cabinets isn't rescuing him. He doesn't want you there. Then I won't go?" "You give up on people quickly for someone who claims he never gives up." I gripped the phone. "What do you want me to do, Marcy?" "I don't know. Call him or not call him. Come over or stay away. Tell me. I want my family back." "So do I." "No, you want us improved first." The sentence stopped me. Maybe she was right. I wanted Caleb accountable, Marcy honest, and myself appreciated. I wanted a repaired family because broken things made me restless. Marcy wanted us in the same room, even if the floor still tilted. "I don't know how to go backward," I said. "I'm not asking you to." "You are." She began crying quietly. "I can't keep doing this," she whispered. "What are you doing?" There was a pause long enough for her to tell me. Instead, she said, "Good night." The original showroom closed next. Caleb sold some display units and moved the remaining equipment into a rented storage space. He told Marcy he had several private jobs lined up. Lauren filed for divorce. He stopped wearing the large watch. I learned these things from Marcy and from what Caleb removed from his business website. He did not call me. I did not call him. Pride can look remarkably similar to patience when viewed from across town. The spring trip approached. Curtis began sending me lists of restaurants and roadside attractions. Marcy stopped asking whether I was going. Our dinners became less frequent. She said tax season was busy. When we did meet, she looked thinner and checked her phone whenever it vibrated. Once, at the Italian restaurant, her card was declined. She laughed too loudly. I must have used the wrong one. She paid with another card before I could offer. "Everything all right?" I asked. "Fine." Marcy. "It was a fraud hold. I bought something online." "What?" "Shoes. You hate buying shoes online." She stared at me. I let it go, telling myself I was respecting her boundaries. That was the kindest name I could give my cowardice. The rain started 2 nights later. It struck the apartment windows hard enough to drown out the television. I was sorting travel confirmations at my desk when someone knocked. Caleb stood in the hallway wearing his charcoal work jacket. Water ran from his hair onto his collar. He looked older than he had at the grand opening, and smaller without the room arranged around him. He came inside, refused coffee, and asked me for $36,000. By the time I told him he could not deny me as a father and then hand me a father's bill, the rain had soaked through one shoulder of his jacket. He stared at me, jaw tight. Then he said, "Fine. Forget being my father. Can you at least act like you're still her husband?" I felt the anger leave me so fast it was almost fear. "Tell me exactly what happened," I said. He looked toward the desk where my travel papers and retirement folder lay in separate stacks. "Mom took out the loan," he said, "the one against the house." The apartment heater clicked off. "When?" "After you left." "How much?" "All of it." I sat down slowly. Caleb remained standing. "She gave you $120,000? Not at once. That wasn't my question." "Yes. And the 36? What it takes to stop the bank from moving forward. How many payments has she missed?" 3. "Why?" His face changed. Shame arrived, but not surrender. "Because I couldn't make them." I looked at the man I had helped raise and asked the first question that mattered. "What exactly did you do with her money?" Caleb removed his jacket and draped it over the back of the couch. Water collected beneath it on the carpet. "Most of it went where I said it would," he said. "Most. Build out, lease deposit, displays, inventory. How much? I don't have every number in my head. You came here asking for $36,000. Find the numbers." He rubbed both hands over his face. His palms made a dry, scraping sound against his beard. "About 42 for the build-out. Another 23 to get the lease started and cover utilities, insurance, all that. Marketing was 9. That's 74. There was inventory. How much? 12 or 13, 87. He looked annoyed that I was keeping up. "The original showroom had expenses too. You told us the original showroom was supporting the expansion. It was supposed to. What happened to the 80,000 you said you had in the business? Those jobs didn't close. Neither of them. One client backed out. The other cut the project in half. So you had no 80,000. I had projected revenue. You called it money in the business. I thought the contracts were solid. They weren't signed." He walked to the window. Rain blurred his reflection against the dark glass. "What do you want me to say?" he asked. "I was too optimistic? I want the truth before your optimism makes your mother homeless." He turned sharply. "I'm trying to stop that by asking me for money without explaining where hers went. I knew you'd do this." "Do what? Make me crawl? If the truth feels like crawling, that's not my fault." He stared at me with the same hatred he'd shown at Marcy's birthday. But it couldn't hold. He was too tired. "I used some to catch up the first location," he said. "How much?" 18. "Debts you already had?" "Yes." "Did your mother know that?" "She knew the business needed working capital." "That isn't what I asked." "No, not exactly." "What else?" He sat on the arm of the couch instead of the cushion. "There were taxes." "How much?" 11. "Business taxes? Mostly?" "What does mostly mean?" "Some personal." I stopped calculating aloud. The total had already passed the amount that could be blamed on one bad expansion. Caleb's gaze moved to my desk again. The travel confirmations lay under the retirement folder, one corner of Curtis's Canyon brochure sticking out. "I kept paying myself," he said. "For how long?" "A few months." "Why?" "I had a mortgage, the truck, regular bills." "You no longer have a mortgage." "Now I don't." "And the truck is gone." "Now it is." "You paid yourself with money secured by your mother's house so nobody would know the business couldn't support you." He stood again. "I wasn't buying yachts. No. You were buying the appearance that you didn't need help. I was trying to keep everything together, everything except the thing paying for it." He paced between the couch and the window. "Lauren was already questioning every expense," he said. "If I stopped taking a salary, she would have panicked. Would she have left?" "She left anyway." "So the lie bought you what?" His jaw worked. "Time," he said. That word again. Every bad decision in our family came dressed as borrowed time. "How much of the 120 remains?" I asked. "Nothing." "You said she didn't give it to you all at once." "She didn't." "How many times did you go back?" "I didn't go back. I asked her to release another draw." "How many?" He looked at the floor. 4. "And each time you told her what?" "That the showroom needed more runway. It needed an undertaker." "Do you think I don't know that now?" "I don't know what you know. You've spent 6 months making sure nobody could see it." He kicked the edge of the coffee table. "Not hard enough to damage it, but enough to make the takeout menus in the drawer rustle. Fine, I failed. Are you satisfied? No. What else do you want? The actual amount due on the house. I told you. You told me 36,000. That's what we need. What is past due? He looked toward his wet jacket. Caleb. 7 and change. I felt my pulse in my throat. 7,000? 7,800 with the late charges. What is the other 28 for? If I can clear the remaining business obligations and give Mom several months of payments? No. You didn't let me finish. You asked me for 36,000 to stop the bank from taking the house. The bank needs less than 8, for now. What happens next month? Your mother makes the payment. She can't. Why not? Because she's been covering things. What things? Some of my bills, the loan. She used credit cards when I missed the last 2 payments. The declined card at the Italian restaurant returned to me. The online shoes she never bought. How much credit card debt? I don't know. You expect me to believe that? It's hers. So is the house, according to both of you. That didn't keep you from spending it. He sank onto the couch. For the first time since he arrived, he looked frightened rather than desperate. Desperation still believes one action can fix the problem. Fear begins when the available actions run out. Does Marcy know you're here? I asked. No. Where does she think you are? Meeting someone about a job. What job? Installation manager. A company in Westfield. Is that real? Yes. Are you going to take it, if they offer? That wasn't my question. His head snapped up. Yes, Owen, I'll take the job. I'll install cabinets for somebody else. I'll wear their shirt and drive their van and let some 29-year-old supervisor explain drawer slides to me. Is that what you need to hear? I need to hear that you plan to earn money. I know how to work. I never said you didn't. You just think I don't know how to be a man. I think you've confused looking successful with being responsible. He laughed bitterly. And you've confused being responsible with being everybody's father. I let that sit between us. Then I picked up my car keys. Come on. Where? To the house. His face tightened. Mom doesn't need this tonight. Your mother needed this before she signed the loan. If you go in angry, she'll shut down. Then you can explain why you brought me $36,000 worth of half-truths. I told you everything. We'll find out. He did not move. I lifted his wet jacket from the couch and held it out. No check, I said. Not tonight. First, all 3 of us sit in the same room with the same truth. He took the jacket. During the drive, Caleb stared out the passenger window and rubbed his thumb against the empty place on his wrist where his watch had been. I remembered the day he bought it. He had brought it to the house, still in the box, and acted as if he needed my opinion on the clasp. I had told him it was too large. Sometimes a man asks you to admire him, and you answer a different question because it feels safer. Marcy's kitchen light was on. Caleb entered first. I followed. She sat at the table with a mug of tea and a stack of envelopes arranged by size. When she saw me, she looked startled. When she saw Caleb's face, the surprise became anger. What did you do? She asked him. I went to Owen. You had no right. Caleb dropped his jacket over a chair. We're out of time. I told you I would handle it. How? I'm working on it. With what money? I asked. Marcy looked at me. This is none of your business. I nearly laughed. You asked me to trust you, and you left. Before or after you signed? Her chin rose. After. 3 days after. The precision surprised her. I know when you visited my apartment, I said. You signed 3 days later. Caleb stared between us. Marcy wrapped both hands around her mug. I made a decision about my property, she said. Yes. You don't get to come in now and speak to me like I'm incompetent. I don't think you're incompetent. You think I'm foolish. I think you were lied to. She looked at Caleb. He looked away. What does that mean? She asked. I pulled out the chair across from her. How much do you think went toward the second showroom? All of it, specifically. I don't have a spreadsheet in my head. Did you know 18,000 paid debts from the first location? She said nothing. Did you know 11,000 went to taxes? Her eyes returned to Caleb. You said the tax issue was included in the old business obligations. It was. You said 6,000. It grew. Taxes don't grow by 5,000 in 1 month. There were penalties. What personal taxes? I asked. Marcy's face changed. Caleb sat beside her. Some of it covered my quarterly payment. You told me every draw was for the business, she said. It was related to the business. Your personal taxes are not my business. Her voice had gone thin. Caleb reached toward her hand. She moved it off the table. How much did you pay yourself? She asked. He glanced at me. Don't look at him, she said. Look at me. About 20 over several months. Marcy pushed back from the table. You took $20,000 in salary? I had bills. You were living in my house for half that time. Not at first. What did I think I was paying for? Mom, what did I think? The expansion. She stood so quickly the tea spilled. It spread beneath the envelopes, darkening their white edges. I grabbed a dish towel from the counter. Marcy snatched it from me and pressed it onto the table herself. You both need to leave, she said. We need to understand what's due, I told her. I understand. No, you don't. Her head came up. Do not speak to me that way in my kitchen. Caleb rose. He knows about the missed payments. She froze. All three? I asked. I was going to catch up. With credit cards? Her eyes moved toward the wet envelopes. One bore the logo of a credit card company. Another was from the home equity lender. How much do you owe on the cards? I asked. Enough. A number. 17,000, Caleb whispered. Jesus. Marcy turned on him. You do not get to be surprised. He looked as if she had struck him. I used them to make the loan payments when you couldn't, she said. I paid your phone, your storage unit, and 2 of your suppliers because you said one completed job would put everything back. I thought it would. You always thought it would. The room went silent except for the rain against the back windows. Marcy sat down. Her anger had passed through her and left her looking smaller. I wanted to touch her. I also wanted to walk outside and keep walking until I reached a place where none of us knew one another. Instead, I sat beside her. Is the house scheduled for anything? I asked. No sale date, she said. Not yet. The letter says I have until the end of the month to cure the default before they move forward. How long? 11 days. Caleb leaned against the counter. I can start the Westfield job Monday if they offer it, he said. But that won't solve 11 days. No, I said, it won't. Marcy stared at the ruined envelopes beneath the towel. Are you going to help me? She asked. There was no accusation left in her voice. That made the question harder. I'll help you face it, I said. I won't promise to save the house until I know what saving it costs. She looked at me as if she had never heard love described so carefully. Then she pulled the wet towel away and began opening every envelope. The first envelope contained a warning from the lender. The second contained the same warning in the larger print. By the fourth, the language had changed from past due to default. Marcy read each page completely before handing it to me. Caleb stood at the counter until I told him to sit. I can see from here, he said. You've been seeing from a distance for months. He pulled out the chair across from us. I found a yellow legal pad in the drawer beside the phone. It was exactly where it had always been. For a second, that ordinary fact hurt more than the numbers. The loan balance was a little over $119,000. The amount required to bring it current was $7,846.12. Marcy had until the final business day of the month. I wrote the number at the top of the pad. Available cash? I asked. Marcy looked offended. You don't need to manage my finances. No, you do. That's what I'm doing. Then tell us. She opened her banking app and placed the phone on the table. Her checking account held $914. Savings held $2,300. What happened to your emergency fund? I asked. Payments. You had almost $18,000. I know what I had. Why didn't you call me and say what? You were right? Yes. Her eyes flashed. Caleb looked between us. Maybe this part can wait. Marcy turned on him. You don't get to decide what waits anymore. He sat back. I wrote down the savings balance. Caleb? What? How much money do you have? About $2,000. About $2,100. Accounts receivable? A little under 9, but I don't know when it's coming. For completed work? Most of it. What does most mean? One client is holding back the final payment over a drawer alignment issue. Is the drawer aligned? It's within tolerance. Is it aligned? No. Fix it tomorrow. He gave me a hard look. Marcy pushed the stack of loan notices aside. Are we saving my house or reviewing his cabinets? The client owes him $3,800, I said. The drawer matters. Caleb nodded reluctantly. What can you sell? I asked him. I already sold the truck. For how much? 31. Marcy stared at him. You told me 24. I owed 7 on it. Where did the remaining 24 go? I asked. Payroll, storage. I paid one supplier. Records? At the storage unit. Anything else? My watch. I had noticed its absence but assumed he had stopped wearing it. How much? 4,000. That watch cost more than 4. That's what they gave me. A watch tells time. The difference between what it costs and what it sells for is the price of wanting strangers to notice it. Where did that money go? I asked. Lease termination. So the truck and watch are already gone, and none of that reached the house. I was closing the business. You were closing the showroom. The business still exists. Barely. What remains in storage? Tools, 2 display runs, hardware, samples, some appliances, value, new, or what somebody will actually pay. The second one, maybe 20, then assume 12. His face tightened. It's worth more than that. Then sell it for more. Marcy stood and made coffee even though it was after 10. She filled the machine too high, and water spilled onto the counter. I reached for a towel. She blocked me with one hand and wiped it herself. Stop doing that, she said. Doing what? Moving every time something spills. I sat back down. She measured coffee into the filter without looking at me. You were right about the showroom. Is that what you need? No. You said the numbers didn't work. They didn't. I didn't leave because you disagreed with me. You left because Caleb said something cruel. I left because when he said it, you protected his right to say it. She turned toward me. I protected my son. From what? You. The words sat there. Caleb lowered his eyes. Marcy gripped the edge of the counter. You don't see what you're like when you think you know better? You become so reasonable that the other person has to be unreasonable just to disagree with you. I can be arrogant. You can make help feel like surrender. I know. No, you say you know, because agreeing is another way to stay in control. I almost answered. Then I realized any answer would prove something, for one of us. The coffee maker began dripping. Marcy continued, her voice unsteady. Caleb came to me with something he wanted to build. I wanted to be the person who said yes, not the worried mother, not the woman waiting for her husband to inspect the numbers. Me. So you borrowed against the house. Yes. After I left. Yes. Why then? Because I was angry. At me? At the way you can say no and sleep afterward. I thought of my first night in the motel, the humming heater, the lighthouse picture, the coffee I couldn't finish. You think I slept? I think you always survive being the sensible one, the coffee maker hissed behind her. What did you think the loan would prove? I asked. That I trusted him. Caleb's face twisted. Marcy saw it. I did trust you, she said to him. I know. No. You knew I wanted to. That isn't the same. He looked at his hands. She poured 3 coffees. She remembered how I took mine and added the exact amount of milk. When she placed it beside me, neither of us acknowledged the habit. I asked, that night I stayed here, had you already given him the full amount? Marcy stopped moving. Caleb looked toward the kitchen doorway, as if considering escape. Yes, she said. You let me ask if you signed anything. I didn't answer. You let me believe he found financing somewhere else. I told you it was handled. You lied. I avoided a fight. You slept with me while hiding a $120,000 loan against the house. Her cheeks reddened. Do not turn that night into a transaction. I'm trying to understand what it was. It was me missing my husband. And the rest was none of your business. Then why did you ask me home? Because I wanted you. You wanted the part of me that made you feel loved. You didn't want the part that might disagree. She slapped her palm against the counter. I wanted one thing in my life that didn't require your approval. Caleb stood. I should go. No, Marcy and I said together. He sat again. I rubbed both hands over my face. Weariness pressed behind my eyes. I'm angry, I said. More angry than I know what to do with, but I am not glad this happened. Marcy folded her arms. I have never been more sorry to be right, I continued. If I sound satisfied, it's because calm is the only way I know not to break something. Her expression softened, then guarded itself again. Caleb stared into his coffee. I knew the first location was behind before the birthday dinner, he said. Marcy looked at him. He swallowed. Not as far as it ended up. But I knew the $80,000 wasn't real. You sat at my table and told me you had it. I thought the jobs would close. You knew they weren't signed? Yes. And when Owen asked, I wanted him to stop asking. Marcy's mouth trembled. Caleb went on, each sentence requiring visible effort. I thought if the second location looked successful, it would become successful. Designers would come. Bigger clients would come. Lauren would stop thinking I was improvising everything. Owen would walk in and realize I knew what I was doing. You built that place to prove something to him? Marcy asked. Not only him. To who then? Everybody. The answer was pathetic and honest enough to change the room. I turned the legal pad to a clean page. Here is what happens next, I said. Not because I'm in charge, because we need a place to begin. Marcy opened her mouth. You can say no, I added. It's your house and your decision. But if you want my help, I will not participate in another version of this, where only one person knows the truth. She nodded once. Tomorrow morning, we call the lender together, I said. We confirm the cure amount and ask what options exist after the account is current. No promises, no pretending. I already called, Marcy said. They won't discuss changes while it's in default. Then first we cure it. With what? Caleb asked. Your 2,000, whatever arrives from the completed jobs. Anything in storage that can be sold quickly. That equipment is how I earn. Keep what you need for installation work. Sell what belonged to the showroom. He stared at the table. What about Mom's savings? He asked. She needs something left for groceries and utilities. Marcy bristled. I can decide what I need. Yes, I said. You can. That answer startled her again. What about you? Caleb asked. There it was. I looked at the legal pad. Between the cash they had and the money Caleb might collect, they could get close. Not close enough with 11 days remaining. My money is not first, I said. Nobody said first. You came to my apartment before selling the things in storage. Selling takes time. Then list them tonight. Caleb's face hardened. You want me to strip down what's left of my business. I want you to stop calling it a business when it only survives by consuming your mother's house. He flinched. Marcy touched his arm, then slowly withdrew her hand before the comfort became rescue. I'll list the displays, he said. All of them? He looked at her, not me. All of them. And the Westfield job? I asked. They offered it this afternoon. You said if they offer, I know. When do you start? The salary is less than I expected. Marcy closed her eyes. I waited. Caleb took a drink of coffee and grimaced because it had gone cold. Monday, he said. It was after midnight when we finished gathering statements and making lists. Nothing had been solved. The house was still in default. The cards still carried $17,000, and Marcy still had regular expenses the three of us had not yet addressed. But every number was finally in the same room. At the front door, Caleb handed me a ring of keys. Storage unit, he said. The small silver one opens the lock. The red tag is the original showroom. Why are you giving them to me? Because if I keep them, I'll decide one of the displays is too valuable to sell. That may be true. I know. It was the first time I had heard him admit knowing something without using it as a defense. He left in Marcy's car because he had sold his truck. I watched the taillights disappear down the wet street. Behind me, Marcy said, Are you staying? I turned. She stood in the hall with her arms folded over her robe. She looked exhausted, frightened, and still angry enough to survive both. Not tonight, I said, her face closed. But I'll be back at 8, I added. We'll make the call together. She nodded. I drove to Juniper Court with Caleb's storage keys in my pocket and the trip of a lifetime waiting in a folder on my desk. For the first time, I understood that saving the house might be possible. Saving it without becoming the same man I had been before would be harder. At 8 the next morning, Marcy placed her phone in the center of the kitchen table and turned on the speaker. The lender's representative required her to confirm her name, address, birth date, and the last 4 digits of an account number. Caleb and I sat silently while she answered. Hearing the house reduced to verification questions made the danger feel more real than any red warning on paper. The cure amount had increased by $43 overnight. Why? Marcy asked. Additional daily interest and fees, the representative said. Marcy closed her eyes. I wrote the new number on the legal pad. $7,800 and 89.41. If I pay that by the deadline, the account is current, she asked. Yes. And then what? You may request a review for a payment modification. I can't guarantee approval. What would you need? The representative listed income statements, bank statements, tax returns, an expense worksheet, and a written explanation of the hardship. Caleb stared at the table when she said, written explanation. Can somebody else make the payment? I asked, if the borrower authorizes it. Marcy looked at me. I haven't offered, I said. The representative pretended not to hear. After the call, Caleb opened his laptop and began listing equipment from the storage unit. He typed too quickly, describing everything as professional grade and barely used. That saw is 12 years old, I said. It's been maintained. You dropped it out of a van. Once. The fence has a dent shaped like Ohio. It still cuts straight. Then say it cuts straight. Don't say barely used. He deleted the phrase. Marcy brought us toast. When I asked whether she was eating, she said she had already eaten. The clean plate beside the sink said otherwise. I spread peanut butter on a slice and handed it to her. She gave me a look. Don't repair me, she said. Eat the toast. She took it. The storage unit held what remained of Caleb's ambition. Cabinet doors were stacked in padded sleeves. Countertop samples leaned against a wall. Brass pulls filled clear bins labeled by finish. The walnut display from the second showroom occupied the rear half, disassembled into cabinets, panels, and a stone section too heavy for two men to move safely. Caleb unlocked the unit and stepped aside. The small space smelled of sawdust, metal, and the scented oil he had used to keep the showroom smelling new. I can sell the appliances quickly, he said. The range was only connected for demonstrations. How much? Maybe 6. What did you pay? 11, listed at 7. Take 5. He glared at me. You enjoy deciding what my things are worth. I'm giving an opinion. It always sounds like a sentence. Then ignore it. He looked surprised. I handed him the storage keys. You decide, I said. You're the one selling. You took the keys last night. Because you asked me to. You were happy to. No, I was willing. He rubbed his thumb over the red tag. What do I keep? Whatever you need to do, installation work if Westfield ends tomorrow. That could be half of this. You don't need showroom displays to install cabinets. I could rebuild. You could. He waited for me to tell him he shouldn't. I walked deeper into the unit and lifted a box of sample hinges. Rebuilding isn't the decision in front of you, I said. Your mother's deadline is. We spent 4 hours photographing equipment and moving boxes into groups. Keep, sell, trash. Caleb tried to create a 4th category called maybe, and I made him label it himself. By noon, maybe covered a third of the floor. Impressive, I said. I'm considering. You're hiding. He kicked one box into sell. A cabinet contractor answered the listing for the walnut display that afternoon. He offered $2,700. Caleb laughed and rejected it. That cost $18,000. It cost your mother $18,000, I said. Right now it's cabinets in a storage unit. It's worth at least 8. Then wait for 8. We don't have time. That isn't the buyer's problem. He paced outside the unit, phone in hand. What would you do? He asked. You already know my opinion. I'm asking? I'd counter at 4 and take anything over 3. He's stealing it. He can only buy what you agree to sell. Caleb countered at $4,500. The contractor came up to $3,000. Caleb rejected it again. I nodded and began loading trash into the back of my car. You're not going to say anything? He asked. You decided. You think it's wrong? It's yours to be wrong about. He watched me tie down a broken shelf. 20 minutes later, he called the contractor back and accepted $3,200, provided the buyer handled removal. The amount was painful enough to be real. On Monday, Caleb began work at Westfield Custom Interiors. He wore a gray company polo with another man's name embroidered over the pocket. Marcy sent me a photograph of him standing beside the company van. He looks miserable, she wrote. I looked at the picture longer than necessary. He looks employed, I replied. She sent back a single angry face, then a heart. That evening, Caleb stopped at my apartment to borrow a thermos. I have one at the house, I said. Mom puts soup in it. That is a traditional thermos use. It tastes like onions now. I took my old steel thermos from the cabinet. He turned it in his hands. A dent near the bottom had been there since my 5th year at the transit yard. You carried this every day, he said. Most days, I remember. He unscrewed the cap, smelled inside, and nodded. No onions? Return it, I will. He hesitated by the door. The supervisor is 41, he said. Older than 29. Still explains drawer slides to me. Does he explain them correctly? Mostly. Then listen to the correct parts. Caleb rolled his eyes, but he left holding the thermos carefully. The client with the misaligned drawer allowed him to return that Tuesday. He spent 40 minutes adjusting the slides and another hour listening to complaints unrelated to the drawer. The client promised to release the final payment on the next billing cycle. That was 3 weeks away. The appliance sold for $4,600. Smaller tools and hardware brought another $900. After paying the storage balance and keeping enough gas money to reach his new job, Caleb had $3,800 available for the house. Not enough. Marcy refused to empty her savings. "I need to keep 1 month of utilities and groceries," she said. "That's sensible," I told her. She looked irritated by my approval. Then she walked into the dining room and placed one hand on the walnut table. The table had belonged to her parents. Its surface carried faint white rings from hot dishes and a narrow scratch Caleb had made years ago while dragging a metal centerpiece. The matching hutch contained china we used twice a year and complained about washing both times. "No," I said. Marcy turned. "I haven't asked. You don't have to sell this. You don't get to decide which sacrifices count. It was your mother's, and now it's mine." Caleb stood in the doorway. "Sell my tools first." "You need tools to work," Marcy said. "You use this." "For what?" 3 people who can't finish dinner without destroying a marriage? Nobody answered. Marcy contacted an antique dealer herself. He examined every joint, opened every drawer, and pointed out 2 repairs as if he had uncovered fraud. "This leaf isn't original," he said. "My father made it," Marcy replied. "So, not original. Original to my family. That doesn't add market value. It adds value to me, which is why you'll pay more if you want it." I stood by the window and stayed out of the negotiation. She got $4,700 for the table, 8 chairs, and hutch. When the dealer's crew carried everything out, Marcy watched from the kitchen. Caleb disappeared upstairs. I remained beside her, close enough to touch, but not touching. The dining room looked larger and wrong. "There goes my inheritance," she said. "The house was your inheritance. I borrowed against that." "Yes." She looked at me. "You could avoid agreeing sometimes. I could." We ate dinner that night at a folding card table Curtis loaned me. Marcy served soup in bowls that did not match because the good china had gone with the hutch. Caleb brought my thermos back washed and dry. Between the sales and Caleb's cash, they could cover the past due amount. Barely. But doing so would leave Marcy without enough for the next loan payment, utilities, or minimums on the credit cards. Bringing the account current for 30 days would only reset the clock. I studied the numbers at my apartment until after midnight. My travel folder sat at the edge of the desk. The money remaining for the trip would cover several loan payments and give Marcy enough room to pay down the cards once Caleb's wages and outstanding invoice arrived. It was not enough to erase the debt. It was enough to make the plan possible. I called Curtis the next morning. He answered with, "I am not sharing a room in Flagstaff. We won't be in Flagstaff." That's what they all say before Flagstaff. "I can't take the trip." Silence. "Marcy?" he asked. "The house," I explained. Curtis listened without interrupting, which was how I knew he was angry. When I finished, he said, "You told me you weren't rescuing them. I'm not paying the whole thing. Money doesn't care what you call it. They sold what they could. Caleb took the job. Marcy sold her dining set. And if you pay, do you go home? No. Does she know that? She will." He breathed out slowly. "I don't want to drive 6 weeks alone. I know. I've been planning this for 2 years. So have I. That doesn't sound like an apology. I'm sorry, Curtis." He was quiet again. "Don't give them everything," he said at last. "I won't. People think sacrifice means love because it sounds better than bad boundaries. Was that your second wife too? Third?" He ended the call. I canceled the reservations I could. We lost 2 deposits. Curtis kept the Canyon booking and said he would find somebody else. The next morning, I met Marcy and Caleb at the bank. I transferred $4,800, the final amount needed to cure the default while leaving Marcy enough to reach the next month. Caleb paid $3,800. Marcy paid the rest from the furniture sale and kept her original savings intact. When the payment cleared, the account showed current. Marcy covered her mouth with both hands. Caleb stared at the screen. I felt relief, but no triumph. A green word on a banking page could not tell us whether we had saved a home or only purchased time inside it. Marcy reached for me. I held her. Over her shoulder, Caleb watched us with an expression I could not read. Then Marcy whispered, Come home. I stepped back. We're not done, I said. Her face fell. The house was safe for the month. Our old arrangement was not coming back with it. Marcy folded her arms. What does done look like? She asked. We were still sitting in the bank's small consultation room. The computer screen showed the account as current, and a fake plant in the corner leaned toward fluorescent light that could not help it. I don't know yet, I said. You know what it doesn't look like? It doesn't look like coming home. Not today. Then what did you pay for? The house. I thought you said this wasn't only about the house. It isn't. Caleb shifted in his chair. Mom, she turned on him. Stay out of this. I can't. We're all sitting here because I didn't. She stared at him. He told us from the beginning that paying wouldn't mean moving back, Caleb said. He didn't trick anybody. Marcy's expression changed from anger to injury. I didn't say he tricked me. You're acting like he did. I had spent years wishing Caleb would stand beside me. When he finally did, I wanted him to stop. Don't make her the problem now, I said. He looked at me as if I had switched teams mid-game. Marcy picked up her purse. I have to work. I'll call you tonight, I said. No? You'll call when you know what the done looks like. She left. Caleb and I sat in the little room after the door closed. That went well, he said. You didn't have to defend me. I wasn't defending you. You were just right. Those can feel similar. He pushed his chair back. This is why I don't say nice things. The lender sent the modification application that afternoon. It was 28 pages long and requested some information twice, apparently to test whether desperation improved handwriting. Marcy completed the first version alone. She left 2 sections blank and listed Caleb's promised payments as household income. You can't do that, I told her. He is going to pay me. That doesn't make it your income. It comes into my account, until it doesn't. Caleb, sitting across from us at the card table, raised one hand. I'm in the room. Then support your own payment history, I said. I have 1 paycheck. Exactly. Marcy threw down her pen. I am not helpless. No one said you were. You both keep behaving like I'm a project. Caleb lowered his hand. I looked at the stack of forms, then slid them back toward her. Complete them however you think is accurate. She narrowed her eyes. And if I do it wrong? Then the lender asks for corrections. You won't? No. The answer displeased her almost as much as interference. She filled out the application without me. A week later, the lender requested corrections. Marcy brought the letter to my apartment and dropped it on the table. Not one word, she said. I read the first request. I haven't said anything. Your eyebrows did. My eyebrows are retired. They act independently. She tried not to laugh and failed. We corrected the application together. Marcy added Fridays to her schedule at the bookkeeping office. She had reduced her hours the year I retired, imagining we would spend long weekends taking small trips. Instead, she used those Fridays to untangle the financial damage she had helped create. Caleb's first Westfield paycheck arrived on time. He transferred $600 to Marcy before paying anything else. She tried to send half back. He returned it with the message, "Stop helping." She showed me the exchange. He doesn't have much, she said. He has enough to buy lunch. He's eating sandwiches every day. So did I for 35 years. He's not you. The sentence no longer felt like an insult. No, I said, he isn't. The client with the misaligned drawer finally paid. Caleb transferred the full amount to Marcy's highest interest card. That surprised all of us. You should keep some, Marcy told him. I kept enough. For what? Nothing impressive. He had moved out of the spare room that morning. A Westfield installer named George rented him a studio above a detached garage. The apartment had sloped ceilings, 1 radiator, and a shower Caleb described as personally hostile. Marcy helped him carry boxes. She returned home with the espresso machine in her trunk. He said it takes up too much counter space, she told me. What are you doing with it? I don't drink espresso, neither did he. He drank identity. She laughed, then looked sad. The loan modification was approved provisionally. The lender extended the repayment schedule and reduced the monthly payment enough that Marcy's income could cover it if the credit cards came down and no fresh emergency arrived pretending to be opportunity. There would be no fresh loan to consolidate the cards, no borrowing against retirement. Marcy called each card company herself, requested lower rates where she could, and set automatic payments she could actually afford. She put the card table in the dining room permanently. The empty space around it bothered her. I keep thinking I hear my mother telling me not to put drinks directly on the walnut, she said one evening. You ignored her when the table was here. That was different. I could disappoint her in person. We ate takeout soup because neither of us felt like cooking. Afterwards, she asked, "How much did canceling your trip cost?" My spoon stopped. "Who told you?" Curtis called. "Why?" He wanted the number for the contractor who fixed the gutter. He has a gutter problem? He wanted me to know he was leaving Friday. I looked at the soup. "How much?" she repeated. "2 deposits." That's not what I asked. The sentence was mine, and she knew it. $4,800 from the travel fund, I said. A little over $700 in deposits. You told me you had retirement money. I do. You didn't tell me this was the trip money. I told you my money wasn't first. That is not the same thing. Caleb leaned back from the card table. He had come for dinner after work and was still wearing the gray Westfield polo. I didn't know, he said. It doesn't change anything, I told him. Then why did you hide it? Marcy asked. I didn't hide it. You let us think you moved money from some comfortable account. The travel fund was comfortable until I moved it. She stood and carried her bowl to the kitchen. I followed. Marcy. She turned at the sink. You did it again. Did what? You paid a price in silence and expected us to discover it later. I didn't expect you to discover anything. Then what were you going to do? Let Curtis leave, sit in your apartment for 6 weeks, and feel noble? I don't feel noble. No. You feel unappreciated. The accusation struck because it was close to true. Caleb appeared in the doorway but kept a careful distance. I wasn't going to use the money as leverage, I said. You didn't have to. You made yourself the man who gave up the trip while the rest of us sold a table and got jobs. Your sacrifice stays invisible until it becomes the biggest one in the room. I was trying not to make it about me. You always say that right before making yourself impossible to argue with. Caleb looked at the floor. I turned to him. You can go? I live 5 minutes away now. I mean, out of this conversation. No, Marcy said. He should hear it. Why? Because we taught him this. The kitchen fell quiet. Marcy gripped the counter behind her. We taught him that love is somebody rescuing somebody else and pretending it didn't hurt, she said. Then the rescued person owes gratitude forever, even if nobody admits there's a debt. Caleb's face reddened. You think I don't appreciate what he did? He asked. I think appreciation is not the same as change. I took the job. I know. I sold everything. I know. I'm paying you. I know. Then what else do you want? I want you to stop proving yourself for 5 minutes and listen. He shut his mouth. Marcy looked at me again. And I want you to stop deciding alone what you can bear. I leaned against the refrigerator. There was no good defense. I had made the decision because the deadline required it, but I had also enjoyed not needing their permission. That was the same privilege Marcy had claimed when she signed the loan. I should have told you, I said. She blinked. Caleb let out a breath. I didn't because I knew you'd feel guilty, I continued, and because part of me wanted you to understand later what it cost. Marcy nodded slowly. That part, she said, that's the part I can't live with anymore. Neither can I. The words did not repair the kitchen, but they made honesty possible inside it. Caleb left soon after. At the front door, he handed me the steel thermos. You can keep it, I said. I bought one. Does it smell like onions? Not yet. He hesitated. I'll pay the trip money back too, he said. No. His face hardened immediately. Why not? Because it wasn't a loan to you. You spent it because of me. I spent it because I chose to help Marcy. That's convenient. It's the truth. He stared at me, then nodded toward the kitchen. She's right. You make it hard to repay anything. He set the thermos on the hall table and left. Marcy and I stood in the doorway after his car pulled away. Counseling, she said. I looked at her. I called someone through work, she continued. If you still want to try, I do. I'm not promising I'll enjoy it. I'd be concerned if you did. Our first appointment was in an office with 2 identical couches arranged at an angle. The counselor, Dr. Reed, asked which of us wanted to begin. Marcy pointed at me. I pointed at her. Dr. Reed waited. I want my husband to come home, Marcy said finally. I looked at her. And you, Dr. Reed asked me, I want to know whether we can make a marriage I can come home to. Marcy's mouth tightened. That sounds like the same goal with a condition attached, she said. It probably is. Dr. Reed asked what the condition was. I thought about family, honesty, Caleb, and the way I had spent years expressing love through jobs nobody assigned me. I don't want to be needed instead of known, I said. Marcy stared at her hands. Then she said, I don't want every mistake to become evidence that I should have listened to him. Neither of us looked at the counselor. We looked at each other. That was worse and better. Curtis left for the trip with his brother-in-law. He sent me a photograph from a roadside diner in Oklahoma. He was holding a pancake the size of a steering wheel and looking betrayed by it. I replied, You finally met a breakfast you couldn't ruin. He sent back a photograph of his middle finger. That evening I sat alone in my apartment with the television off. I had expected regret. What I felt was emptier than that. The trip was happening without me. The house was standing without me. And my family was learning to function without waiting for me to fix the next thing. Someone knocked. Caleb stood outside holding 2 paper bags. What happened? I asked. Nothing. Then why are you here? I brought dinner. Why? He shifted the bags in his hands. You make normal things difficult. I stepped aside. He set barbecue on the coffee table and handed me a container of potato salad. We ate while Curtis's photograph remained open on my phone. Caleb saw it, but did not apologize or promise to repay anything. He did not ask for advice. He complained about Westfield's inventory system, and I told him the transit department had once ordered 600 left-side mirrors for buses that needed right-side mirrors. He laughed hard enough to choke on brisket. For one evening, neither of us rescued the other. He simply showed up. Caleb returned the following Thursday with Chinese food. The week after that, he came empty-handed and sat on the tan couch complaining about a customer who wanted floating shelves strong enough to hold a collection of cast-iron cookware. Tell her no, I said. I did. And? She said the internet says it's possible. The internet doesn't have to stand under it. He smiled. Our conversations remained safest when they involved wood, fasteners, or other objects that could not accuse either of us of abandonment. That didn't mean they were meaningless. Caleb had spent years calling only when a vehicle broke down or a project exceeded his confidence. Now, he sometimes called because he had 20 minutes before work. It took me 3 calls to stop asking what he needed. Counseling was less comfortable. Dr. Reed had a habit of waiting 3 seconds longer than a reasonable person. Silence would settle, become awkward, then become unbearable. Whoever spoke first usually told the truth by accident. During our 4th appointment, she asked Marcy why she had not defended me at the birthday dinner. Marcy gave the answers I had already heard. She had been shocked. Caleb was angry. She did not want to choose between us. Dr. Reed waited. Marcy adjusted the strap of her purse. I knew Owen wouldn't leave for good, she said. I looked at her. She kept her eyes on the carpet. Caleb might. The room seemed to narrow. Dr. Reed asked, So, whose relationship felt safer to risk? Marcy glanced at me. His. I leaned back against the couch. There it was. Not hatred, not indifference. Something more ordinary and, in its way, more painful. I had been hurt because I was dependable enough to survive it. You thought I was the safe person to lose, I said. No, I thought you were the safe person to hurt. I'm not sure that's better. It isn't. Dr. Reed waited. Marcy twisted her wedding ring. When Caleb's father left, he didn't say goodbye, she said. He packed while I was at work. After that, every conflict with Caleb felt like a door I had to keep him from walking through. He isn't that man, I said. I know. Do you? I know now. The word now could not repair the birthday dinner, but it admitted there had been a before. Marcy looked at me. You always came back, she said. Even when you were angry. I usually never left. That's what I mean. You confused my staying with not being hurt. Yes. She said it without defense. I wanted to forgive her then, because forgiveness would end the discomfort. That impulse was familiar. I let the discomfort remain. Dr. Reed turned to me. Why did you stay silent for so long? I thought patience was love. Was it? Sometimes. And the other times? I looked at Marcy. Sometimes I wanted them to notice without me asking. Notice what? The work, the cost. Me. Marcy's eyes filled. I noticed you, she said. You noticed what I did. That isn't fair. No, it's incomplete. Dr. Reed asked what the complete version was. I thought about the transit yard, the house, Caleb's showroom, and every repair I had performed while somebody else went to bed. I had treated usefulness like proof of belonging. Then I resented the people who believed the argument I had made. I made myself necessary, I said, because necessary felt safer than loved. Marcy reached for my hand. I let her take it. Outside the counselor's office, we stood beside our cars while afternoon traffic moved through the intersection. "Are you coming to dinner?" she asked. "Do you want me to?" I just asked. "You asked whether I was coming, not whether I was invited." She closed her eyes briefly. "Would you like to come to dinner with me?" "Yes, at the house," I assumed. "And would you stay?" "We haven't had dinner yet." Her mouth tightened. I touched her cheek. "I'm trying not to promise things because the answer would make you happy." "I know. That doesn't mean the answer will always be no." She nodded. At dinner, we sat at the card table. Marcy had placed a small vase in the center with 3 grocery store carnations. "Elegant," I said. "It folds. The flowers, the table. We can make room for dancing." Afterward, she put on the Nashville record. We danced in the empty dining room, careful not to step on the uneven seam in the rug where the walnut table had once stood. When the song ended, I stayed. In the morning, I noticed the bathroom faucet handle was loose. My hand reached toward it automatically. I stopped. Marcy, brushing her hair, watched me in the mirror. "The faucet needs tightening," I said. "I know. Do you want me to fix it? Do you want to?" "That isn't the same question. Why does everything require a hearing now?" I leaned against the doorframe. "Because I'm trying not to assume." She set down the brush. "Yes," she said, "I want you to fix it. After coffee, that's acceptable." I repaired the faucet after coffee. It took 6 minutes. Marcy thanked me, and I managed not to say it was nothing. Caleb's payments arrived every other Friday. Marcy recorded each one in a small notebook. She no longer called them help. She called them repayment. When he tried to reduce one transfer because his car needed brakes, she refused. "You can pay the full amount next payday," she told him. He looked wounded. "I need the car for work. You need brakes. That doesn't make the house payment disappear." He looked at me, expecting intervention. I kept eating. "Whose side are you on?" he asked. "I'm on the side of finishing dinner." Marcy laughed. Caleb did not, but he transferred the missing amount the next payday. He closed the storage unit after the last appliances and display pieces sold. We met there to sweep the empty floor. A few brass pulls remained beneath the shelving, along with one cabinet door sample in an unfortunate shade of yellow. Caleb picked it up. "Remember this? Mustard Funeral. You named it that. It deserved a truthful name. A client chose it. Some people dislike themselves." He laughed and tossed the sample into the trash. I handed him the ring of keys. "The red tag isn't useful anymore," I said. He removed it and held it in his palm. North County Design House had been printed across the plastic in white letters. For a second, I expected him to keep it. He dropped it into the trash beside Mustard Funeral. At Westfield, Caleb became the person they sent to difficult installations. He was good at walking into a room where a client was already angry and finding the one detail that could be fixed before discussing the 10 things that could not. "They offered me a project coordinator position," he told me. We were drinking coffee in my apartment. He still used the same mug each visit, though I had never assigned it to him. "That sounds promising. It's less field work." "Do you want less field work?" "My knees do." "What do you want?" He considered the question. "Steady," he said, "for a while." It was the first ambition I had heard from him that did not require applause. Lauren texted me shortly before their divorce became final. "Got my mixer. He even cleaned it." I replied, "Miracles remain under investigation." She sent a laughing face. Then she wrote, "Is he okay?" I stared at the question. "You should ask him," I answered. A minute later, she wrote, "You're right." That exchange cost me something. The old version of me would have carried messages, softened answers, and made myself useful to both sides. Instead, I set down the phone. Caleb told me later that Lauren had called. He did not tell me what they discussed, and I did not ask. The lender made Marcy complete 3 months of trial payments before finalizing the modified schedule. She made each one from her own account. Caleb's transfers went toward the credit cards. By the end of the 3rd month, The highest interest card was nearly paid off. The permanent modification arrived on a Thursday. Marcy called while I was buying coffee. "It's approved," she said. "I'm glad. That's all. What would you like?" A little enthusiasm. Should I shout in the grocery store? Yes. I looked at the woman beside me, comparing two brands of tea. "Our loan modification was approved," I announced. The woman stared at me. Marcy laughed into the phone. "Happy?" I asked, more than I was. That evening, she opened a bottle of wine. Caleb joined us at the card table after work. We toasted to nothing in particular because Marcy said she was tired of celebrating paperwork. After Caleb left, I washed the glasses. Marcy dried them. "When does your lease end?" she asked. "Next month. Are you renewing?" "I haven't decided." She placed a glass in the cabinet. "You've spent 4 nights here this week. I know. Your clothes are appearing upstairs. I've noticed. Your brown sweater is in my laundry. I wondered where it went." I didn't say the brown sweater. I said the brown sweater. I looked at her. She smiled. "The one I hate. I own several." "I know. It's one of your darker qualities." We finished the dishes. I waited for her to ask me home again. She didn't. That restraint should have made the answer easier. Instead, I drove back to Juniper Court and lay awake listening to the pipes tick inside the wall. The apartment no longer felt like refuge. It felt like a decision I was postponing. Denise noticed. "You renewing?" she asked when I brought the rent downstairs. "I haven't decided. Unit 3 wants your furniture. It came with the apartment. She still wants it." "What would anyone want with that couch?" Her cat likes disappointment. Denise handed me the renewal form. I carried it upstairs and left it unsigned on my desk. At our next counseling appointment, Dr. Reed asked what kept me from returning. "Trust," I said. Marcy looked at me. "Do you trust me?" "More than I did." "That sounds like a progress report." "It is. How much more do you need?" "I don't know." Her face hardened, then softened again. "I can't wait forever," she said. "I'm not asking you to." "What does that mean?" "It means you're allowed to decide this separation no longer works for you." She stared at me, stunned. "You would let me end our marriage?" "I don't own your decision." That is a very polished way to say yes. No, it's a painful way to say, "I won't keep you waiting with promises I'm not ready to make." Marcy gathered her purse and left the session before the hour ended. She did not answer my call that night. The next afternoon, she asked me to come to the house. When I arrived, she was sitting alone at the card table. No food, no wine. A sheet of paper lay in front of her, face down. I stopped in the doorway. "What happened?" "Nothing." That word has had a difficult year. She turned the paper over. It was a handwritten list of what the house might need before a sale: paint, minor repairs, cleaning, and replacement of the old carpet upstairs. I pulled out a chair. "You want to sell?" "I don't know." "Why make the list?" "Because I needed to know whether I could." "Could what?" "Let it go." She looked around the dining room. "I used this house to prove I was independent," she said. "Then I used it to help Caleb. Then I nearly lost it and expected you to save it. It has become the 4th person in our marriage. You love this house. I do. It belonged to your parents. I know. You fought to keep it. I fought to keep everything." Her eyes met mine. "I don't want you to come home because the loan is safe or because your tools are still in the basement. I don't want you wondering whether I chose you or the man who knows how the furnace works. What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'll sell it. For me, for us, or for myself, if there is no us." I looked at the list again. Marcy's handwriting shook near the bottom. "I can live somewhere else," she said. "I can love you somewhere else. And if you don't come back, I need to know I didn't keep waiting inside a monument to the life I wanted." I reached across the card table and covered her hand with mine. The house was finally safe. Marcy was offering to release it anyway. For the first time since I left, she was not asking me to rescue anything. I turned the sheet of paper over again. "Do you want to sell?" I asked. Marcy wiped one eye with the heel of her hand. "I want to stop being afraid of the answer." "That isn't the same thing. I learned from you." I smiled faintly. She squeezed my fingers. "If you said right now that you would only come back if we sold it, I would. I would never ask that." "I know. That's why I can finally offer." I looked past her into the kitchen. The refrigerator door held the same magnets, but the counters were clearer. Caleb's espresso machine was gone. So were the piles of mail Marcy had once arranged by size without opening. The room looked ordinary, which is what home looks like when nobody is trying to turn it into a symbol. Don't sell it for me, I said. What if I sell it for myself? Then I'll help you pack. And if I keep it, I'll help with that too. She searched my face. From your apartment? No. The word came out before I could polish it. Marcy's grip tightened. I want to come home, I said. She closed her eyes. But not because the house needs me, and not because you offered to sell it. I understand. Do you? No, she said. But counseling has taught me to wait 3 seconds before pretending I do. I laughed. She stood and came around the card table. I held her against me, feeling the familiar shape of her and the unfamiliar care with which we now approached each other. How soon? She asked into my shirt. My lease ends in 3 weeks. 3 weeks? I have to pack. You own 4 shirts and a coffee mug. I have paperwork. You always have paperwork. I also need to tell Denise, the other woman. She's still 70. I want independent confirmation. We kissed. It was not like the kiss outside Caleb's showroom, full of hope we were afraid to examine. This one contained an answer and several new questions. Marcy left the sale list on the table for 2 days. Then she put it in a kitchen drawer. She did not tear it up. I may still sell someday, she told me. That's allowed. You won't take it personally. I'll try to take it only as personally as necessary. That sounds exhausting. It probably will be. I told Denise I would not renew. She removed her orange glasses and examined me, as though the lenses had been protecting her from my stupidity. You sure? She asked. No. Good. Good? People who are sure about relationships are usually the ones who haven't been listening. Which wife told you that? I've never been married. That explains the confidence. She put her glasses back on. Unit 3 wants the couch. She can have it after I leave. Her cat has been waiting. I began moving slowly. The first load contained books, winter clothes, and the blue sweater. Marcy made space in the closet instead of telling me where everything used to go. I put my shoes beside hers, then moved them, because I remembered she disliked the soles touching the wall. You don't have to perform good husband, she said from the doorway. I'm putting away shoes. You're putting them away with emotional significance. They're shoes, Marcy. Nothing is ever just the thing with us anymore. She had a point. The second load contained kitchen utensils I had bought for the apartment and had no reason to keep. Marcy took one look at my frying pan. You cooked with this? It's a pan. It's shaped like Ohio. So was Caleb's saw. Throw it away. I paid $12 for it. I'll reimburse you. That sounds like financial rescue. She placed the pan in the trash. Some problems did not require counseling. I kept sleeping at Juniper Court twice a week until the lease ended. Marcy did not ask why. I did not pretend the reason was furniture. Leaving the apartment was more difficult than entering it had been. It was the first place I had lived that belonged only to me, even temporarily. Nobody had chosen the curtains with me or left a mug in the sink. My loneliness there had been mine, but so had my peace. On my final Thursday, Curtis came over with a souvenir from his trip, a plastic snow globe containing a desert highway. It doesn't snow there, I said. It was $7. You overpaid. You would have stopped me. He walked through the nearly empty apartment. So you're going back? Yes. House safe? For now. Marriage fixed? No. He nodded approvingly. At least you learned something. How was the canyon? Beautiful. I'm sorry I missed it. So am I. He did not tell me there would be another trip. I was grateful. Some losses should remain losses long enough to mean something. Before he left, he pointed toward the tan couch. You taking that? Unit 3. Lucky cat. Caleb's life did not transform, simply because the house remained standing. His divorce became final. The custom kitchen business was dissolved, its website taken down, its name removed from the original showroom window. He kept working at Westfield and accepted the project coordinator position. The salary was steady, the shirt still carried somebody else's company name, and the supervisor still occasionally explained drawer slides. Caleb learned to listen to the correct parts. Every other Friday, he sent Marcy the agreed payment. Once, he was a day late because his new bank account had not processed the transfer. Instead of waiting for Marcy to ask, he called. It'll be there tomorrow, he said. All right, she replied. I'm not avoiding it. I didn't say you were. I know. I'm saying it before you can think it. I was thinking about laundry. Oh. He looked disappointed that his accountability had not earned a ceremony. Marcy thanked him when the payment arrived. Nothing more. She sold the espresso machine for $400 and applied the money to the last expensive credit card. When Caleb found out, he said, "I could have sold it for $6." Marcy answered, "Then consider the missing $200 a fee for storing your personality on my counter." He laughed harder than she did. The three of us continued eating at the folding card table. Marcy could have bought a replacement dining set, but she chose not to. "I like that nobody can pretend this table is an heirloom," she said. "It pinches my leg," Caleb replied. "That can be its legacy." During one of those dinners, Caleb apologized to her, not for the failed showroom. He had apologized for that several times, each version sounding like a report on market conditions. This time he put down his fork and said, "I knew you wanted to be the parent who believed in me, and I used that." Marcy stared at him. "You did believe," he continued. "That wasn't fake. I made it expensive because I didn't want to admit Owen was right." She looked toward me. I shook my head. "Leave me out of it." Caleb nodded. "I made your love responsible for proving I could succeed," he told her. "Then when I didn't, I kept asking you to prove it again." Marcy reached for his hand. He let her take it, but he did not use the comfort to stop speaking. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not because it failed, because I knew you were afraid to say no to me." Tears moved down her face. "I was afraid," she said, "but I still signed. That part is mine." They sat with that. Nobody was rescued from the conversation. My final counseling appointment before moving home ended with Dr. Reed asking what I would do differently the next time I felt unappreciated. "Say it," I answered. Marcy raised an eyebrow. "Out loud? That's the current recommendation. And what will you do when I disagree? Become calm and unbearable." Dr. Reed almost smiled. I tried again. "I'll tell her what I need without presenting it as the obvious reasonable answer." Marcy nodded. Dr. Reed asked her what she would do the next time Caleb wanted help. "Ask whether helping him makes him more capable or keeps me necessary." I looked at her. The answer belonged to both of us. Moving day arrived without a truck. I had carried nearly everything over in small loads, which Denise said was how raccoons moved. The last items were a box of papers, 2 lamps, the snow globe, and the brown sweater Marcy hated. I placed them in the back seat and walked through the apartment once more. The walls showed pale rectangles where my few pictures had hung. The desk was empty. The retirement folder rested in the box beneath Curtis's Canyon brochure. I left the keys with Denise. "Tell Unit 3 the couch is emotionally unavailable," I said. "She'll take her chances." At the house, Marcy's car was gone. She had gone to pick up dinner, leaving the front door unlocked for me. I carried the box inside. A faint metallic tapping came from the kitchen. Caleb was kneeling in front of a lower cabinet with a screwdriver between his teeth. One hinge hung loose, and 3 screws rested in a neat line on the floor. "What happened?" I asked. He removed the screwdriver. "Mom said the door was sagging." "And she called you?" "I was already coming for dinner. That wasn't my question." He looked up at me. "She asked me to fix it." I set down the box. He had removed both hinges when only the top one needed adjustment. The cabinet door rested on a folded towel beside him. "You're doing too much," I said. "I wanted to check the lower hinge. The lower hinge was fine." "How do you know?" "The gap." I checked the gap. "While angry, I'm not angry. Then you have no excuse." He smiled and shifted aside so I could kneel. The screws he had selected were too short. I opened the junk drawer and found the box of longer wood screws where I had left it months before. Caleb watched me. "You're really moving back?" he asked. "That's why I brought the box. You've brought boxes before. This is the last one." He turned one of the short screws between his fingers. "I've been trying to figure out what to say to you." "About the cabinet?" "No." I waited. He put the screw down beside the others. "When I came to your apartment, I asked you to save Mom's house because I still thought your job was to clean up whatever I couldn't." "I know. I didn't." "What? I didn't know that then. I thought I was asking because you had money. You were. That too." He looked toward the empty doorway, making sure Marcy had not returned. "I said you weren't my father because I wanted your opinion not to count," he said. "Then when everything fell apart, yours was the only opinion I trusted enough to be afraid of." I rested my forearms on my knees. "You don't have to make it sound better than it was. I'm not trying to." "Good," he nodded. "You were my father," he said, "even when I was treating the word like something I could give you or take away." The kitchen became very quiet. I could have accepted it immediately. Part of me wanted to. Another part wanted him to feel the full weight of what he had done. Both impulses were about ending the moment on my terms. So I told him the truth. You don't get to revoke that title when you're angry and restore it when you need forgiveness. I know. It isn't a reward either. I know. What are you asking me for? He looked at the cabinet door. A chance to keep showing up. I handed him one of the longer screws. You have one. He fitted the top hinge into place. Dad? He said. The word was quiet and uncertain. Yes? Phillips or Flathead? I looked at the screw in his hand. Phillips. I knew that. Then why did you ask? He smiled. I handed him the right screwdriver and held the cabinet door level while he tightened the hinge. When it was secure, I let go. Caleb closed the door once. It settled squarely into the frame. This time, I let him finish.